All right. And then I'll have the red skeleton starting up, and then after that's done and I introduce you, it's all ready to go. All right?
Very good.
The recording has started.
Well, I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. And I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher, Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell, he says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance, under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Thank you, Red Skeleton. Today is Monday, August 7th, 2017. You are listening to The Disclaimers by Davidlee Buess and Edward Johnston. Ed is going to be a bit late today due to appointments. So it is Davidlee Buess that is going to start the show today. Go take it away, Dave.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate that. Red Skelton, in his presentation of the pledge, it's a pity. When I asked Congress, members of Congress here a few years ago, if they would write that and sign it and send me a copy, that I received absolutely none. What does that tell you about our elected leaders? If they don't have the wherewithal to write that up, sign it, and send it to me, what do they think of their oath of office?
Good point.
I get very much concerned as an American over the political crap that's going on in this country, and the fact that we have 300 men and women who are supposedly in charge, who can't do a simple thing as to recognize the Republic constitutionally established, and yet they feel that the democracy is alive and well. There never has been a democracy in this republic. The two do not coexist. Men and women of this country make this country great, not our elected and public servants. I think our elected and public servants are doing everything they can to destroy this country and put it in the hands of foreign leaders to destroy it. You remember correctly that back when our founding fathers formed this nation, the Declaration of Independence, the corporation that immediately followed, Congress refuses to tell me who those three individuals were who formed this corporation. And I've asked for it more than one time. The 28 U.S.C. 3002 definition 15, United States means a corporation. Where was the amendment to the Constitution ever granting to Congress the authority to form an independent corporation to run this nation? It's an act of high treason. It's always been an act of high treason for them to even think that. And it's time we, the men and women of this nation, stood up and said, enough is enough is enough. We do not have to put up with this. We're not going to put up with this. And if you don't like the Republic, pack your bags and get out. We didn't ask you here to ruin the nation. We asked you here to represent we, the men and women of this nation. Some people would call that the people, which I would agree with. But what's going on in this country is far from being politically correct. And it's time we put a stop to it. This corporation is a de facto government. It's always been a de facto government. It's running amok out of Puerto Rico and other holding territories. It basically has no jurisdiction inside a union state. You cannot have a democracy and a republic. No man can serve two masters, can he or she? So if our elected and public servants wish to serve we, the people, the men and women of this nation, then they better do it as the Republic. because constitutionally established, every state is guaranteed a Republican form of government. End of story. Period. If our elected public servants, lawyers, judges, attorneys, don't want to abide by the law of this land, which is the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, let them pack their bags and get the hell out of my country. I'm fed up. A very simple solution to a major problem that we have anymore in this country. We have idiots who seem to think that the democracy is what it's all about. There never has been a democracy in this country, other than by treason. I'd like to know what your feelings are and thinking is on this. I'm going to open this up for Q&A right now for a short time, and I want to know what the feedback is of the American people as to what you really think this country is, a democracy or a republic, and why. And by the way, do you even know the difference between the two? Good point. Michelle just asked me that. So, but let's open it up to Q&A. I'd like to hear some people's opinions. You there, Don?
Don is, but okay. Let's see, so you want to just open it up?
Yeah, just open it up.
All right.
Because I would love to know, are Ed and I wasting our time here trying to educate people, or are they actually catching on as to, are we in a democracy or are we in a republic?
All right.
All participants are unmuted.
If I may. Yeah, as far as I know, the first democracy in history is mentioned in the Old Testament. When Moses went up the mountain, while he was gone, they had democracy. Didn't work very well then, and it doesn't work very well now, and it never will work well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, and sold.
Well, yeah, we appear to be kind of short on colors today. We've got 2 colors other than us, Dave, so.
Okay.
Hey, but it's still 2 that are interested, and you know what? If those 2 learn as much as they can and teach 2 each, that's 4. It will expand. It will go bigger.
Of course, it usually does. But people better understand or comprehend, let's put it that way, that the government of we the people is exactly that. We the people run the government, not our elected and public servants. And fraud by trickery doesn't get it done. That's why I'm so fed up with the horse hockey that's going on in this country. Because people think it's a democracy. If you want to be under British law, pack your bags and go to Britain. No one's stopping you. What is British law? It's the legal system under the democracy. Cannot have legal and lawful running together. Every American national, sovereign, and that's what we are sovereigns. We cannot go into courts of law ran by British law. We have to have constitutional judges with constitutional oaths of office, with constitutional grand jury indictments. I don't think people comprehend the difference between the legal system and the lawful system constitutionally established. People need to know, when you walk inside a courtroom, they don't dare be flying a color of law fraud scheme against you, which is a gold fringe flag, which automatically throws the court under military regulation. Look it up, Dwight David Eisenhower, Executive Order 10834. Misuse of that flag carries a 1-year prison term. That judge in that courtroom automatically goes to jail for 1 year by color of law fraud scheme. You can't be elected to public office to a court, serve as a judge, and run a sham process against you in his courtroom. And that's exactly what's going on in these courts today. I'm sick of it. You bring this up to them, they go, oh, well, that flag was here when I got here. Well, are you that stupid in law that you don't know how to change it? It's very simple. You pick it up and you take it outside and you throw it on a burn pile and you burn it. Not that hard. That means that they have to put a standard American flag in that courtroom to give you justice. Anything else is a sham process. They know it, and so do we. Go to court, bring in your American flag, and put it on a pole so it's the highest flag in the building. They can't deny it. And they know they can't. The fraud scheme and trickery is color of law fraud, which is a gold fringe flag, which represents martial law.
So you have to make sure what jurisdiction you're under. Are you under military jurisdiction? Or are you under your jurisdiction, under common law? There's a difference.
It's a good point, Michelle. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So know the fraud scheme you're up against when you walk into court. These judges need to be prosecuted for fraud against you. And so should the prosecutors.
You should also know how the judge works. The judge is not supposed to be acting as the prosecutor. Judge is supposed to be listening to the prosecutor.
Problem is, the prosecutor is a hearsay witness. He doesn't have first-hand knowledge of the facts.
Right.
So in these pseudo-corporate courts, the prosecutor is presenting evidence that he doesn't have first-hand knowledge of.
That's why you have to have evidence when you go into court to represent your case. Otherwise, everything you say is all hearsay.
Your attorneys are in cahoots with the prosecutor from the get-go, they don't represent you. If they represent you, they lose their bar license.
That's why you have to know what jurisdiction you're under so you can hold them in contempt of court.
If one's jurisdiction is questioned, they have to prove it, that they have it. It's not up to you as a defense to prove jurisdiction. It's up to the judge to prove he has it. If he doesn't do it, the case cannot lawfully move forward. It is procedural error. How many of you have never been in court to know the fraud scheme they're pulling on you?
That's why no attorney or lawyer will represent you under common law.
That's true.
Ask them the question, and they might tell you why.
I would say that 99% of the trials that have taken place in the United States could be overturned for procedural error. Because the judges don't want you to know the truth. And since they're under martial law, or they'd be military, how can they actually have jurisdiction? Let me ask you a question. Did they convene the court to hear the matter between the plaintiff and the defendant? Or did they merely call the court to session? Which means the court is talking to another court. Look up the meaning of words that they use against you in these courts. It's amazing.
Yeah, damn it.
Go ahead. I heard somebody say something.
Don't come after me on that one. That was your own brother, Dave.
Oh! Well, hi there, brother. I guess he's shy. Well, moving along, Michelle and I are working on the IRS case. We've submitted a notice of dishonor to the IRS and Social Security, letting them know that their illegal lien is a sham process. They have 21 days, actually 20 days now, to respond to it before we sue them. We asked for some information out of the Hancock County, have that letter. Asked for some information out of the Hancock County Recorder's Office.
Land records.
What we were told does not jive with this letter, but I want to read this to you anyway. To whom it may concern, thank you for your request of two quick claim deeds, and it gives the volume and page for each. Hancock County Recorder's Office requirement payment of copies of deeds that are not obtained by the current landowner. Now, I want you to comprehend this. That are not obtained by the current landowner. If I'm not the current landowner, how can I have a lien on the property?
Under your name.
Other than by name. In other words, I never owned it. So how can you put a lien on a property that was never owned by you? Please send your payment due of $22. Now, if I only have 2 pages here, page 263 and page 62. That's a lot of money for 2 pieces of paper.
No, honey. That's the page number and the volume number pertaining to the case.
Yeah.
But you have 7 pages.
No, I have. Oh, excuse me. Michelle says I have 7 pages here. But even at that, that's $3 a page. Normally, you only charge $1 a page. You should also have the option of going to our website and printing out your own copy.
For free.
For free. Okay. So anyway, but since we want a actual copy as to who we're paying the taxes and everything, we want a printed copy of it. Excuse me, I'm fighting an upper respiratory. But this is the kind of stuff you get when you start upsetting the apple cart. You meet with resistance of all kinds. Boy.
Let me say something, please. What I want you to comprehend is those that are facing these fraudulent liens, what you have to do is you have to do a credit report on yourself. If you own your home and you pay taxes, you have to go into the land records. Also, you have to look under the tax collector's website and who you pay your taxes to, and you have to ask for a payment history. Now, your payment history will be under your name, and it shows per year who's paid those taxes. Now, you might be quite surprised, even though you are not a victim to identity theft or fraudulent liens, but you just might discover that there might be some other people there who are paying your taxes under secrecy. The reason why they pay your taxes under secrecy is because they're moving forward to file a fraudulent lien against you under secrecy. So many people don't even know they're victims. David didn't know until we checked it out, and he had 7 of them filed under different terms, under different amounts of money. So this isn't just, you don't have to be a victim. You need to check it out if you're a homeowner. I checked it out. I was a victim. Didn't know that I had liens against me under secrecy. Now, keep in mind, when they file these liens, they're not on your mortgage. They're on your insurance policies and your taxes. If you filed bankruptcy, the only thing that falls under bankruptcy would be Titles 7 and 11 and 12, and I believe it's 13, is your mortgage. We also have insurance on these mortgages, which covers the grantor or the lender under those terms. Has nothing to do with the bank. Has to do with the lender or the servicer. Whoever is giving you that money or claiming they are giving you that money under your mortgage, under the contract. You need to look up the terms. What is a quiet claim? A quiet claim is a deed. When you look these up, that will be under land records. Under the land records as court reporters under the land records database. If you don't use the term land records, you're going to get referred to as they have it already outlined in the part of the scam. You go to these websites, and these websites are turned over to attorney's website who handles quiet claims, any kind of liens that are out there. You get turned over to an attorney, and they charge you $1 to get a copy of your records. or it can go up to even $20 or $22 depending on the website. But you can bypass that by putting the term land records in the search bar when you do your search on your property. So when you file bankruptcy, that covers only your mortgage, does not cover insurance or taxes. That's a separate policy unless you claim it in your bankruptcy. If you are granted a discharge when you file bankruptcy, then automatically you are free and clear, and they cannot come after you under a lawsuit to steal your home. These are things, though, you have to know and you have to do your research on. As David has learned, he didn't realize he was a victim to identity theft, under land theft, since there's two claims under the deed on the property. Like he was saying, how can he have a lien on his taxes when he's not really the owner?
Never was.
Never was, as he says. So we're fixing now to go forward. We were waiting for the copies of the deed as he was describing in the letter. That's on the quiet claims. I wanted to see what they were going to say in those papers. So it looks like we're going to have to go to court and see what we can pull up, along with going on the internet that they gave us under the website. But I just have to laugh that they're going to charge us over $2 per page when you can get it for free if you go on the internet. So, anyway, these are things you need to know. Any questions? Hello?
Michelle, whenever I went out and investigated my deed of trust in Colorado, it said I was a joint tenant.
What'd you find
But
out?
I asked them, I said, who's the other tenant? And they couldn't tell me that. But we did a quit claim deed, and I filled out a deed with me as the only owner on the land.
So they have you down as being married, I take it, huh?
No, they just had me as a joint tenant. No other name was listed on there.
Really?
A joint tenant.
A joint tenant usually means a married couple.
And it may have been that they had me as a joint tenant with the state of Colorado.
No, a joint tenant means someone besides you living in the home. You are a tenant.
Well, nobody lives on that piece of desert.
Oh, it's just a piece of land?
It's just a piece of land. It's land, not property. But it's just a piece of land, and it's alkaline rock and a little bit of scrub sagebrush, and it's really not very inhabitable.
Okay.
It might be fit for a horny toad in the summertime, but not in the wintertime. It's 12 below there in the winter.
Do you pay taxes on that property?
I pay taxes on that land. I don't pay taxes on the property. It's just the land.
Well, what you need to do is you need to do a title, or excuse me, not a title. You need to do a tax research on that land to see if there's anybody paying your taxes besides you. You might be surprised what you'll find. There are many people that are, in other words, you've been paying your taxes, you're not behind on your taxes, you're up to date, but you'd be surprised that there are going to be other people probably paying your taxes. Now, what you want to do, and what it's called, is what was it I just mentioned to you earlier? No, on the taxes that you want to ask for. Oh, a payment history. You want to ask for a payment history on your taxes. Now, you can do that through the tax collector that you pay your taxes through. You can either call them by phone or you can go on their website, put in your paracel number and your ID number on your taxes, and you should be able to pull it up for free. And you can print out your payment history from the time you owned that land and to present. And it will indicate how much every year you have paid towards your taxes on that summary, and it's called a payment history.
Okay.
So I would highly recommend you do that. You also want to do a credit report, and the reason why I say that is because those that are paying your taxes, if they are paying your taxes, usually do a credit search on you. They want to see what you are worth and what's your land worth. These people that are stealing these homes and this land, usually they're after homes. So if you just have land and there's no home on it, more likely you're not going to have a problem. But the people that are becoming victims, they're after the homes on that land, on their property. So that's why they are filing these fraudulent taxes, because that's what they're claiming as to the liens.
I have only land there, no property.
That is correct. In your situation, it would be land. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't try to steal your land, but I do know that most cases, as far as I know, it's people that have homes on their land. And that's why they're filing these fraudulent tax claims, because what they're doing is they're claiming that they're paying your taxes. Now, they don't do this right away. They wait for 5 years before they make a move. And the reason why they wait for 5 years is because the banks don't have the payment history as to your checks. Your actual checks that you write out get destroyed, and it's only electronically filed through the bank's database. That's why they wait for 5 years before they come after you. Because let's face it, if you bring evidence in court and you have the hardcore evidence as your checks, more likely you're going to have standing, and they're not, because you're proving that you wrote the check. So that's why the banks, what they do is they destroy the actual papers pertaining to the checks, and it's only electronically recorded. Now, a lot of times you can get copies of your checks, but it's a pain in the butt, and they only go back just so many years. So that's why they wait 5 years or over 5 years before the banks or they who's committing the crime come after you.
Okay, thank you on that.
You're welcome.
Now, these executive administrators are acting as judges.
That's right.
They're corporate executive administrators to the corporation, and usually they're tied into the banks. They're part of the bank. They're not separate from the bank, which is a conflict of interest.
But remember now, what you also want to look up is what is a trustee. Because remember, the banks are trustees. Okay, and they're also trustees to your land. And anybody can be a trustee. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be an attorney. You can be a trustee. There are also trustees to the estate that are not lawyers. So you need to look it up if you don't know what all a trustee can do.
Well, I'll have to look in Black's. And read and comprehend that. A lot of times words don't mean what we think they do.
Right. If you look in your search bar and you just put what is a trustee, you'll be amazed what you'll come up with.
Yeah. Well, getting back to that, you just spoke of evidence a while ago. Now, when you go before an executive administrator and you present the evidence and you challenge jurisdiction and the evidence is before him and he refuses it and he refuses to accept the challenge of jurisdiction.
Well, when you challenge jurisdiction, you should be asking for a common law grand jury.
Well,
Or a review on the evidence. So it's a common law grand jury on evidence for review.
okay, well, we need to have a session sometime just on getting together a common law grand jury and getting moved from executive administrators into a real court. Because that's the big problem is whenever you go in there and you're before an executive administrator and he's a sub-administrator of another executive administrator, and when you get into Fourth District Court, you find out that executive administrator is another administrator under the U.S. Corporation Administrator, and you've never seen a judge, and they've thrown it out without cause and refused evidence. How do you bring about a grand jury? So we need to have a session on that sometime on just how to assemble a grand jury.
Absolutely. We can have a discussion on that later.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
What this show's about, is finding out the truth and presenting it. After all, they did write it and we quote it, so let's find out where they're screwing us over and get it out to the public. Any further questions?
Not right now, thank you.
What they did to you is they addressed you under their jurisdiction rather than the common law grand jury jurisdiction, and because you didn't know how to dispute that, they just went forward and did their thing, and they denied your hearing. They violated your due process rights.
Well, that was the complaint in the writ of mandamus, and they dismissed it without cause.
Well, sure, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do, and the reason why they do that, whatever you were presenting, they didn't want the truth to be heard, so they just dismissed it.
And they want to know if you have the know-it-all, go back in and challenge that
That's
dismissal.
Right. That's exactly right.
Well, they refused criminal charges of their own criminal activities, too, so...
They do. But they can only deny it so many times.
Say what?
They can only deny it so many times.
Yeah.
Did you ask for, did you address a bias move against that court or the judge for that claim, on that claim?
Well, we'd already, the writ of mandamus was a bias move. And
I know, you have to, I know what you're saying, but if you didn't make it clear that they were acting biased against you as the judge, then basically you're in limbo because you didn't open the door for it to be moved forward, and you didn't transfer it from that court to a different court.
Well, I tried that, Michelle, but the two courts here are one. It'd be like me going up against your husband and saying, I have a problem with Michelle. That doesn't work when the two are one. Right. and there is no court of record.
No, you can actually request, because it's a bias, being biased against you, you can pick your judge. You can actually pick a governor or state senator to act as a sitting judge. Are you aware of that?
No, I was not aware of that, but they're also part of the corporation.
Well, they might be for the corporation, but you're already in that jurisdiction anyway. So what you should have done, or what you could do, because you already filed on a bias move, request for a governor or state senator to sit in as a judge to rehear your case.
Well, in these cases, they keep everything sealed. So
it ain't sealed when you open up a new hearing.
Well, this case has been sealed from the get-go, and actually we were denied access to the court from the get-go. The adoption was conducted in another case number, and we was never informed of what the case number was. And we were held outside of that case number.
So you were not properly served?
No.
That falls under procedural error. That's grounds for new case or new case. New claim.
New claim. That's right.
It's already been presented and ignored.
It might have been.
I'll have to send you a whole bunch of it. I got a new email address today. My email now is Daniel_Beeler BEELER @yahoo.com.
Well, I can tell you right now that you didn't do as I'm claiming. In other words, what I'm trying to say is you have to open up a new case.
Yeah. Well.
And resubmit it. In other words, start all over.
Well, I've already charged the West Virginia Supreme Court with misprision of felony, and their response was to throw it in the trash can.
I'm sure it was.
What?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, they threw it in the trash can. They moved up the deadline date one day, and 3 days later made a ruling on it and threw it in the trash can.
3 days later, they ruled on it. Were you in court on that day?
No, they do everything in writing. They will not allow you to attend.
Did you know that a lot of that bullshit is not really being addressed in court? That's the clerk of the courts doing that crap.
I'm aware of that. The clerk of the court is the one that signed it.
Right. So what you need to do is file a claim just against the clerk of the court.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the info.
And I want you to know that, see, what you have to do is go back at your court documents now. And if you can review your court documents. Because if you can prove that the clerk of the court modified a court document, that is a serious crime. And if you can prove that the clerk of the court altered a court document, okay, you can go after her just on that alone.
Well, I have right here a copy that was stamped received September 3rd, 2014. Another copy of the same writ of mandamus, a certified copy that says filed September 22nd.
What I want you to look for, one copy of the clerk of the court will be stamped, okay, meaning she didn't handwrite her signature in.
Well, these are stamped and the ink's bled through the back of the paper.
Right. So what I want you to look for when you look at the clerk of the court stamp, look and see if some of them have been whited out where she stamped your papers and then changed it and handwritten it in under her name. If you have any of those kind of documents, that's fabricating a court document. You can get her for a serious
fraud upon the court.
Not only for fraud upon the court, but you can go after her for tampering and altering your document, which is a serious crime.
Definitely.
That would also fall under identity theft, by the way.
Also fall under what?
Identity theft.
Well, you know, this letter that was written to the judge, and it said in the third paragraph that it was written with the intent of influencing the judge's decision-making process, that we have a copy of. They wouldn't accept charges for conspiracy to interfere with justice.
Right. Well, you also...
And that was held in secret, by the way, from May 8th till September the 4th of 2014.
Right.
And acted upon.
I got to take a call.
Okay. Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Bye. These are the things that we run up against when we're in court. most of the people don't realize that 90% of the stuff is done by the clerk of the court, and that the clerk of the court is responsible for the docketing, and so to change your court case, they do it before it's docketed. So that's where you got to catch them, and then you send them a notice of error to the docket, and they have 10 days to correct it. So are we making ourselves plain to you people that we're fully aware how the clerk of the court and the judge and all of them operate?
I have yet to see a judge, Dave. I've seen executive administrators, but no judges.
Okay. So they're letting the little guy decide your court case.
Okay.
They're letting the magistrate decide the court case.
Heck, they're letting the clerk decide.
Yeah, they're letting the clerk decide. That's exactly right. What he just said, they're letting the clerk decide. He's correct.
The court?
Yeah, the clerk of the court is doing it, not the judges.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Here's what you should do. When what you want to do is go on the internet on the court's website, and what you want to do is pull up the list. Who are the judges' secretaries? Very important, because it's the judges' secretaries who are fraudulently addressing these papers. And see if those secretaries are the ones that are stamping the papers on your case. See, and in other words, put the name with the person, if you can, by checking their website out and see who the judges' secretaries are. I don't know if you've done that.
I haven't.
Well, there you go. You need to do it then, and you'd be amazed.
You'd be amazed how much time they can consume out of your life.
Oh, no kidding. Not only out of your life, but how much they're stealing from you, and how much they're, just like you said, with these children that are being taken from their parents. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's terrible what they're doing. Stealing homes and stealing kids from parents, or one parent. It can be one parent too. I mean, it's awful. Well, that's part of taking down the United States, you know. That's all. It's all about that democracy. But everybody thinks that democracy movement is such a great thing.
The frosting on the cake, Michelle, was when they renamed the baby after his conquerors.
Well, there you go. There you go. Yes. And you know, the sad thing is nobody knows the difference between a democracy and a republic. I mean, it's sad. Nobody knows that the democracy stands for a privilege. Shit, all these foreigners came from that and came to the United States based on faith.
Well, I was under the impression tonight we were going to cover this
IRS
foreign registration number. Are we going to cover that tonight, or is that another night?
Wait for Ed to get back.
We're waiting for Ed to get back.
Okay. Well, I'll wait.
I would also recommend that that are victims to identity theft or other types of crime, be aware that when you go to the IRS or you look up the IRS's the agencies in your state, the number that's provided is a sub-branch or the main branch out of Washington or the main branch out of your state. It's not the phone number that actually is showing up under that address. So when you call and talk to an agency regarding the IRS, for instance, make sure that you ask for the phone number regarding that address as to that agent.
Okay.
Because that was another discovery that we have unraveled. It also falls under the Treasury of the state and also the United States Treasury, because there's two different meanings under that. People need to be aware of that. And I don't know if people are not aware or are aware, but regarding liens, the Treasury of the state has to give the final say on a lien. So if you have a lien on you, you need to make a phone call and look it up as to who's your Treasury, United States Treasury, or excuse me, not United States Treasury, the state Treasury of your state. And you need to find out if they have notification on you pertaining to a lien. Try to get as much as you can in writing, especially if the Treasury of the state says, no, there's no liens on you. Well, there's your evidence right there.
Well, you know, I talked to those people about 5 years ago, last time I talked to them.
Yeah.
And they called me up and started claiming that I owed them this, owed them that. And I says, look, I'm old, I'm about ready to, and you got a big motel to put me up in. Why don't you just come get me and put me up for the rest of my life? They said, sir, it's highly unlikely we would ever put you in jail. And I haven't heard from them again.
Well, and that's good. I'm glad they said that. Because
but I have been out on jobs where they have deducted from my wages, and I've never gotten it back.
Well, the Secretary of the State isn't doing that. It's whoever made the claim.
Yeah.
The Secretary of the State only acknowledges it.
Yeah.
So whoever filed the claim is who you have to go after.
Yeah.
They put you through this bullshit to wear you out. I hope you give up.
Yeah.
Well, I told them to come get me and put me in jail, and they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to. I said, just go ahead and put me up. I'm ready to retire anyway. And they didn't want to do that. So
that
was
it very strange?
What?
Don't you find it very strange that people are getting these phone calls and they're claiming that they're from the IRS, and if you don't come up with the money, they're going to put you in jail? And I can't get over how many people are falling for that. I would have been saying, if they, of course it's a recording, and they give you a number to call, and the number is not even a legit number. It's a number who knows God where it's coming from, and people call those numbers, and fall for the trap.
Well, I don't know, Michelle. It's to me, it's just all executive administrators and corporations, and the government's gone. The government is gone, as far as I can tell.
The Attorney General is of each state has a secretary that keeps records of what goes in and what goes out on each state.
Yeah.
So that should tell you something.
Well, I don't know, in a 3-hour hearing, 10,800 seconds, they recorded 4,404 words. Then they certified it under 5174 of the West Virginia Code, which pertains only to the size of the font and the size of the paper. And they called that a record. That's less than one word every 2.45 seconds. And they called that a record. But out of the 22 transcripts we requested, we was only allowed 2. And they weren't accurate, either one of them. But the judge controls what goes in the record here. And so you can't get an accurate transcript And then they seal the record anyway.
Well, see, that's where you have to know what to do, because under those circumstances, if there's no recording, all that they're addressing in that document, okay, is all hearsay.
That is what?
Hearsay evidence.
Hearsay evidence.
Oh, yeah. Well, the caseworker that they paid to bring the complaint had never seen the mother, the baby, or the child. They had never seen the child, and they've never seen the backpack, and she was the complaining witness.
Did you subpoena the master tape?
Say what?
Did you subpoena for the master tape?
I requested them from the Supreme Court, and they refused them.
Wow. You actually subpoenaed the master tape?
I requested them. I didn't subpoena them. I should go back and subpoena them.
Definitely.
You have to subpoena them.
Okay. And but under 5171 of the West Virginia Code, the judge tells the transcriptionist what's going to go in that record and what's not going to go in that record.
Well, that's why you got to subpoena them. You got to subpoena for the master tape and the documentation that took place in that courtroom. So that's where you're going to get them.
Well, I'll have to open a new case number to do that.
Exactly right. That's
I don't know how to bring about a new case number. They're just going to tell me the case is closed.
You just talk about fraud upon the court.
Okay. Well, there's 11 challenges to jurisdiction that's never been addressed.
Well, I would recommend that you only address one. Don't open it and talk about 15 things. Just talk about one thing.
I don't know how to do that because they're all intertwined.
Saying everything they did to you was fraud upon the court.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. Well, certainly.
Just focus on one item to reopen it as to subpoena
the record.
To subpoena the record is what I'm stating. What I mean.
Yeah.
Don't have to go into elaborate detail. You just want to say due to fraud upon the court by the bailiff or the plaintiff, or not the plaintiff, by the clerk of the court.
Well, you know what? You don't even have to claim fraud upon the court. You're entitled to records. You can actually do the request without making a claim. In other words, don't claim that you're suing anybody. Don't claim that there's fraud upon the court. You're entitled to records. So I would make a request under that.
Not in child custody cases. Not in child custody cases. They seal the record.
But you're still entitled to the record.
Not according to them.
Well,
not according to them.
The parent is the one who has to do the initiative as to that request.
Okay.
The parent has to do it. If the parent,
Well, the parent is dead, and the grandmother was applying to adopt her grandson and was denied access to the adoption case completely. She was held as an intervener in the abuse and neglect case after the defendant was dead.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
She was never ever allowed access to the adoption case, or even allowed to know what the case number was in the adoption case. They kept her as an intervener in an abuse and neglect case, and pretended they were doing an adoption there, while they did the adoption in another case number.
Well, yeah, the only thing I can say is that's why I'm telling you not to open it up like you're reopening up that case. Just make a request. You follow me? Just request for the documents without bringing it to their attention as to the actual case itself.
I think the only way I'm going to get any response out of them whatsoever, and the Supreme Court ruled threw it out without addressing it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Take it to the grand jury. Take it to a grand jury on a claim.
Yeah, you can. It's called
there's enough paperwork been filed to choke a horse, and all of it's been ignored.
It's called a grand jury investigation. Now, I was told to Florida, now I don't know about your state, keep in mind now this is a lot of it's hogwash, but I was told that through a common law grand jury investigation, you pretty much have to have a criminal complaint.
Well, I have a criminal complaint, conspiracy to interfere with justice, and it was ignored.
That's your grounds right there for a common law grand jury investigation then.
Yeah, it was ignored. It was ignored by the Supreme Court, ignored by the Third Court, and ignored by the Fourth District Court. Fourth District Court said it's just a little fraud, and it said in the third paragraph of that letter that it was written with the intent of influencing the judge's decision-making process. I quote.
So what I want you to do is change the scenario. Do not go in there and request for a grand jury investigation like you were addressing it before pertaining to that case. What I want you to do is address it under a criminal complaint, okay? And think of how you want to open it up under a criminal complaint under the common law grand jury investigation. Otherwise,
the criminal complaint was ignored by the state police and ignored by the Supreme Court, ignored by the Fourth District Court.
Right. So change the scenario so you can reopen it under a criminal complaint and don't address it the same way you were before and see how it goes.
Okay. Well, I can send you a copy of the criminal complaint that we filed. And I was thrown out of the state police office down here because I brought my own criminal complaint because they refused to provide a complaint form.
Right. So change it. Don't use that same concept. Change the status
into common law somehow, some way. That's what I'm asking you guys about. Because I'll have to send you a copy of the criminal complaint and the letter and let you see what has been ignored at all levels up to this point. And the affidavits are in place and ignored. They have been in place now since 2014 and since September 12th of 2014 and ignored. The Supreme Court of West Virginia is guilty of misprision of felony. And that was thrown in a trash can, ignored. It's the way it's gone the whole distance. So, yeah.
You need to send them a notice of dishonor on your affidavits.
Okay.
And by doing that, you're opening up the channel to move forward with your common law grand jury.
Okay. Well, that's what I needed to know.
Okay.
The criminal complaint you're referencing to is what you used pertaining to the prior case. You don't want to use that same complaint. You want to change the status. In other words, go at it a different way to reopen it and have a criminal investigation through a grand jury.
Okay, so that'd be misprision of felony on the criminal complaint.
Yeah. In other words, keep it simple and the less you say, the better you are.
Okay,
Don't give the enemy heads up as to what you're trying to do. The less you say, the better you're off.
Okay, well, that would be misprision of felony on a criminal complaint. And
I wouldn't use that term. Don't say it that way. Don't say it that way, because when you say it that way, you're going to hang yourself.
why am I going to hang myself when they're the criminals?
Because you're giving heads up what you're trying to do. What are you trying? In other words, don't don't prove your claim through the criminal complaint. Wait for it to get go in front of the grand jury, then put out what you're trying to do. Because what you're doing is you're giving your enemy heads up as what you're trying to prove.
Well, if they don't know what they're addressing, how are they going to address it?
Because when you request for the common law grand jury investigation, all you're going to do is just be brief. You're not going to go into a whole bunch of detail. You do that after it gets granted.
I'm not going to go into a bunch of details. They won't have anything to investigate.
I'm saying
no grounds for investigation.
I'm saying don't go into a bunch of details. Wait until you're granted your complaint through the common law grand jury investigation. Then you go into all that
Well, who's going to grant this complaint? Who's going to be the grantee?
Complaint.
Well,
the Attorney General.
It's the Attorney General. So the state's attorney is going to tell me whether or not I can file a complaint against the state.
I meant to say the state attorney, not the Attorney General. The state attorney.
Still the state attorney that's still going to tell me whether or not I can file a complaint against the state he represents.
You're not. What are you trying to prove? Are you?
I'm trying to figure out how to bring this about, Michelle. I'm trying to figure out how to bring this about. What? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to bring this about, but it doesn't sound logical to me to bring it before the state's attorney and ask the state's attorney if I can file a claim against the state.
It's a criminal complaint, and you want to request for a common law grand jury investigation through a criminal complaint, right?
Okay, right. But you stand up before the state's attorney?
That's usually who grants a common law grand jury investigation, yes. The state attorney does. Now, I may be wrong on that. That's what I was told through my state.
Okay, so that tells me that, so they've turned down everything so far. They just threw it away.
Because you're making accusations about the state.
Right, because that's the guilty party.
My point is, I mean, I understand that they're the guilty party, but what are you trying to prove? Are you trying to get this child back into the grandparents' hands, or are you trying to prove that they committed a crime?
I'm trying to get the child back into the grandparents' hands, but because of the crimes they committed, it's why he's not here now.
I understand that. I trust me, I know what you're saying. I'm trying to get you not to go into all that detail in your criminal complaint until you're granted through the state attorney's office the grand jury criminal investigation. Then that's when you can throw that shit in there.
Okay. Well, the grand jury here is appointed by Judge Robert Irons.
Right.
It's not common law.
Right.
Okay. The grand jury here is appointed by Judge Robert Irons, and they do as he tells them.
Right. And I'm talking about a criminal complaint, which is you have to change the status, how you address it.
Okay. I'll send you a copy of this criminal complaint. You could tell me how I need to address it, because I haven't found any way to get past these heathens. They're running the circus, they're the ringmaster, and they're the clowns.
Addressing that complaint, were you not addressing it to the court?
I brought the complaint before the West Virginia State Police. They threw me out of their office. I brought the complaint before the West Virginia State the Supreme Court of Appeals, which is not truly a Supreme Court, it's the Supreme Court of Appeals, and they have no mandatory jurisdiction.
Right.
And it's like North Dakota. And they chose to ignore it. They chose to change the dates on the writ of mandamus that it was assigned to in order to keep it out of the writ of mandamus and dismiss the writ of mandamus without addressing it.
Well, that's where the clerk of the courts are messing with the paperwork, and they're making it look like it went in front of the judge, and more likely it didn't go in front of the judge. That's all doings with the judge's secretary or the clerk of the court, just like you were referencing earlier.
Yeah.
It's the same bullshit that I'm facing and everybody else is facing, and that's where you have to learn how to change how you're going about bringing forth that claim, and in order for it to get somehow addressed.
Well, how do you bring a claim against the West Virginia State Supreme Court of Appeals for denying justice, denying access to the court?
That's my point. My point is you don't know. You're assuming that it went in front of that judge. In other words, that judge might not even be aware of it.
Well, I have some handwriting on the backs of some of the documents. I have copies of them with the judge's handwriting on them.
Okay.
I have some copies with the judge's handwriting on them.
It's called
Margaret Workman wrote on them. She wrote on them, and she put her name on them.
Is it stamped or handwritten?
It was handwritten.
Look and compare the handwriting to the other documents to see if it was robo-signed.
I can guarantee you this is handwriting.
And it's the same on all the other pages? Exactly the same?
No. She wrote in the gutter, you know, where you bind the documents together. She wrote in the gutter.
Right, and I'm asking you to compare them with other documents with her signature to see if by any chance if it was robo-signed.
Well, that's another thing here, too. The cop signed the warrant for the magistrate.
Well, you know that can't be, if you have evidence of that, that's fabricating a court document.
Yes. I need to hire a handwriting specialist on that one.
Okay. I'm not alone.
The two handwritings are the same. What?
Just on that alone, you can open up your case just on that alone. Don't talk about nothing else. See, that's what I mean by changing the status. Change the status. Don't talk about the child. Don't talk about the case. Change the status. Use something different to open up that case.
Okay. Well, that letter that was never addressed, that was written with, it says right in it, it was written with the intent of influencing the judge's decision-making process. And it was CC'd to the prosecuting attorney, to the judge, and of course the caseworker had a copy. There was four parties a party to that letter, and it was held in secret and acted upon. And we was fighting this thing and not knowing where all this came from. And but yeah, nobody will accept charges for conspiracy and interfering with justice.
Have you actual people that were, you need to do is subpoena people that are acting in the case. Get them on the stand. What you need to do is subpoena the people that are doing all the action in the paperwork. Go after them individually as witnesses.
once they get a subpoena, they're going to be called to testify on your behalf. I guarantee you they're going to change their attitude.
Okay. Well, they say what?
You name them as defendants.
Yeah. The trouble is, who's going to agree with the subpoenas? So far, we've been denied access to the courts the whole distance. Who's going to agree with the subpoenas?
They have to tell you, you keep going back to the case. I'm getting you to reopen a new case.
Right. But the new case is about the old case.
Those who were claiming that were witnesses on the plaintiff's part. So you subpoena them as your witness in court.
Okay.
In other words, you subpoena them. You get them on the stand. They have to testify. Did they actually sign that piece of paper? Did they witness what is being said pertaining to the documentation?
Okay.
I'll tell you right now, most of them probably ain't even aware of that bullshit.
Once the judge understands then, or comprehends, I should say, the fact that the parties to the court are actually committing fraud against the court, there could be some people go to prison on this.
See, what I'm saying is you go after just one person.
He committed fraud upon the court himself, though. The judge committed fraud upon the court.
Fine, they all do.
But in order for you to make ground, you have to change your status. So I'll give you an example. Just like with my case, I went to court. They covered up the crap, right? But that doesn't mean that I can't subpoena them and open up a case and go after just one person. And all I have to do is claim that person was a witness. I get that person into court and I say, hey, Judge, I'm subpoenaing this person. She claims that she was a witness to this accusation here pertaining to this document. Do you follow what I'm saying? So I bring her into court and then I get her on the stand. Did you witness this piece of paper? Did you actually da-da-da? And she's going to say yes or no. If she says yes, then you go into further detail in the questioning. Well, apparently she don't know when she witnessed the judge. You have to change it. Don't keep addressing the same case. Change it.
I'm still very confused about what you're talking about, because to me it's all about the case.
I know that's where your mind is caught in a paradigm. You don't want to give up the paradigm.
Well,
so you have to
these crimes
that if I don't change my verbiage, the way I present this into court, to get it in there, and to actually bring this to a grand jury, as long as I'm stuck on the case, I'm going to lose.
Okay, well, if I could get it before a common law grand jury, I would have a chance. But these people are fleas all on the same dog. So, anyway, I've taken enough time out of your show.
Well, that's okay. We don't mind taking time out of the show if we can help you out. So
it's like this. If the car is purple, you want to say it's blue. You don't want to keep saying it's purple. You got to change the status.
Okay, now I don't know what you mean by changing the status here, Rochelle. That's where I'm getting it. Change the status.
The status?
Either it's a criminal complaint or it's not a criminal complaint.
It is a criminal complaint.
You want to make a criminal complaint.
I already have. It was ignored.
In other words, you want to open up a new case as a criminal complaint because you were denied, first of all, due process.
Right.
So you're not going to go into all this other stuff as to the old case. You're going to bring some of it in but you're changing. That's the status I'm talking about as to the old case, the case you lost on.
Okay. Well, even the 4th District Court chose to ignore conspiracy to interfere with justice.
And I can't answer to that, to the whys, because I don't know how you actually presented the case.
I presented a copy of the charges of misprision of felony against the West Virginia Supreme Court, and he said it was just a little slander. But when you come before a judge in secret and set up with the intent, in the letter, it was written with the intent of influencing the judge's decision-making process. And the 4th District Court's response to that was, this has all been before judges.
Okay, and how did you present for damages rendered upon the victim? Meaning,
we denied due process of law, but that didn't seem to matter.
Did you ask for a grand jury investigation and a trial by jury?
No, I did not. At that time, we were still fighting on the impoverished status and didn't have any. We'd used up everything we had, and they denied it. They called it frivolous. Removed all the affidavits from the case, rejected all the evidence, and said the case was frivolous without the evidence.
Well, you can reopen the case under violations of your due process rights and request for a common law grand jury by trial.
Well, that's what we're going to have to do.
That's exactly what you're going to have to do.
And do it in Philadelphia, I guess, because it isn't going to happen here.
Yeah, I want to move it into a different jurisdiction, absolutely.
Because the bias is just in your area, so you got to move it out of there. That's why you filed it into a different venue.
Well, the state of West Virginia Corporation is just an extension of the United States Corporation.
Well, they all are.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court ruled all courts are crooked.
But
yeah.
The thing is you need to redo it, and that's the bottom line, and see where it goes from there.
Well, I'll get into it and redo it.
Okay.
I'm going to have to.
We'll help you with it.
Well, I'll send you copies of it as I redo it. But I've thrown arrows at this thing from every side, and it's like throwing arrows at a steel 55-gallon drum.
Sure.
I've probably got over 1,000 hours into this case and gotten nowhere but kicked.
Here's the problem. And I did it too. We all do it, okay? When you write up your documentation, you want to be as brief and make it simple as possible. You don't need to go into all these details and drag on and drag on and drag on. Make it just simple and as it can be. The less you say, the better it is. Because what you're doing is you're giving them, your enemy heads up as what you're trying to do and what you're trying to do in court.
Well, evidently it worked because they just held us outside the adoption and did the adoption in a secret case number and held her as a defendant in a case where the defendant was dead. And it held her as an intervener in a abuse and neglect case after the defendant was dead, and went ahead with the abuse and neglect case after the defendant was dead. And that was addressed while it was still going. But the adoption was done in another case number in secret, and that's the way it went.
Let me ask you something. Do you have new evidence or anything new after that has happened?
I had all the evidence up to the time we went to the Supreme Court and we went to the 4th District Court.
So since then, has anything new come about that you weren't aware of at the time?
No.
Okay.
No, other than years going by now, trying to figure out what to do.
Right. That's what so many people are tied up in. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So,
I know that anytime the bar members tried to, when she first started out, she had a target. Anytime a bar member tried to speak in his court, he would shut them down. He would shut down. That's not the way we do it here.
Right.
And Robert Irons was arguing the case, but there's no record.
A motion to vacate that judgment?
I need to file a motion to vacate that judgment, but I don't think that motion, that'll be just a motion. What do they do with motions? Whatever they want to.
You have to file a motion against the judge's order. That's what's called a motion to vacate that judgment. That's what
right. Right, but they do whatever they want with it. There's 11 challenges of jurisdiction based in there too.
No.
But they were never addressed.
It doesn't fall under that same category. When you file a motion to vacate a judgment, it falls under a different category.
Okay. Well, you have to have grounds. You can't just file a motion to vacate a judgment and expect them to grant it.
The grounds would be they violated due process rights, your due process rights in the Constitution.
Well, that was addressed from the first when I first stepped into it, and ignored when I first stepped into it.
So
it was ignored for over a year. The violations of due process rights.
Well, that's right. So you need to file a motion to vacate the judgment, including the last judgment on that case. Then you have to state your grounds why you're putting a motion in to vacate that judgment.
Okay, but they'll probably do the same thing done with every other motion, just throw it out.
Because you're not going to go into all that crap that you did before. You're going to change the status. You're only going to address where they violated your rights.
Okay. And I probably got 32 pages of where they violated our rights.
I'll tell you what. You draft up your paperwork, and I'll review it, and I'll see how you're doing it. And I'll
okay. I'll have to send you a copy. Anyway, I've worn this subject out, so I'll let it go.
All right. This is going to be on your motion to vacate the judgment.
Say what? It's violation of due process. But it was a violation of due process from the beginning to the end. The complaining witness was hired to be the complaining witness, and she had never seen anything she verified. She didn't swear to anything. She verified it, but she didn't swear to anything.
That's why you're filing a motion to vacate that judgment.
Okay, well, that'll be real fun because there's no record to base an argument on. Unless I can subpoena a record.
You don't have to subpoena the record on a motion to vacate a judgment.
Okay, well, then they just throw it out they do what they want.
They can't throw it out.
That's what they've done so far.
Look up the information on what a motion to vacate a judgment falls under.
Under 60B? Under Civil Rule 60B?
Yeah, look up some case laws on it. So you have an idea how to address your paperwork.
Go into your styles manual in your state and see what they have on that too.
It'll also be under Rule 60 and Rule 59.
Okay. Well, 60B is motion to vacate
A judgment.
A judgment, yeah.
Okay, well, look it up. Look up the some case laws on it.
Okay, well, that's going to be fun here because they only accept what they've already ruled, and they twist that. They twist it real good.
Here's what you're doing. You're shooting yourself in the foot before you ever put the case forward.
Exactly.
Well, I've been shot. I don't have to shoot myself in the foot again. My feet are full of holes.
I'm just saying, the way your frame of mind is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
that's what I mean by shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, so they hit you with a baseball bat enough times, you realize they might hit you with a baseball bat.
Got that right.
Well, keep in mind, even if they object to the motion to vacate the judgment, you can resubmit it. You can resubmit it and resubmit it and resubmit it. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, you can
if they do that like 3-4 times in a row, you submit it to the Supreme Court of the United States for decision.
And will they hear it, or do they hear 1 in 900 cases?
Well, I don't know.
We can't answer that, just like you can't answer it.
I was looking at a number of cases they hear, and the odds is like 1 in 500 even getting in there.
So probably the Judicial Watch and see what Judicial Watch has to say about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean,
this was my first step on the writ of mandamus was based on violation of due process.
Yep.
And violation of due process was ignored and dismissed without cause.
Sure.
And there was 11 challenges of jurisdiction in that writ of mandamus, and based on violations of due process, including that they have MDT meetings, multidisciplinary team meetings here, and no record is allowed.
Well, in
MDT meeting. And what it is a tribunal
right.
of the actors of the state, and they bring their information before the court as they see fit to bring it without a record. And that was in the writ of mandamus. It was ignored. It was just ignored, and put aside without being addressed.
Well, unfortunately, you are not an attorney, okay? You don't know how to address the court, and there were things that you probably could have done that you weren't aware of at the time that could have probably changed that, scenario. So,
well, we watched the attorneys address the court and get told to shut up.
Well, that's good, All I can say is, you got to move forward and see where it goes.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll let it go. I'm trying to figure out what to do with this thing, and I'm not willing to let it go, ever.
I know.
So you need to file a motion to vacate the judgment, and you can request for a grand jury investigation on it.
Yeah. Okay. A common law grand jury investigation or just a grand jury investigation?
Common law grand jury investigation.
Yeah, because an appointed grand jury, appointed by the judge here, and they're kept for 2 years.
The judge cannot appoint a grand jury.
That's right. You have to.
He does here.
No.
Nope, that's wrong.
That's a bias move on part of the court.
That'd be a conflict of interest.
That's right.
Well, I'll go down and get a copy of their rules on appointing grand juries here.
Why are you grand jury? There are 2 different grand juries. That's their grand jury, and they are allowed to pick their own jury on their side. You're not requesting for that jurisdiction. You're requesting for a common law grand jury, which is your jurisdiction. You pick your own peers just like they do.
Okay. I don't think that'll fly in their circuit, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, they're going to try to get you not to allow it to comply, but you say,
Exactly.
Sorry.
That's a conflict.
That's a conflict of interest on your part.
That's right. Excuse me, Judge. I think you got that wrong.
Well, I'll find out how the grand jury is appointed here, and I'll give you a call back and let you know. In fact, I'll send it to you in writing. But I'm sure the judge is appointing the grand jury here.
Why are you going to their court, number one?
Hey, Eddie.
Hey, Eddie.
I'm back. I finally got in. It's been a long day with the doctor, but anyhow. Why are you allowing them to pick it? You're supposed to file your stuff in another court.
That's what I was just going over with Michelle. I have to go. Well, I tried the 4th District Court. That didn't work. It's going to have to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Or Philadelphia court.
Yeah.
Not your state.
Right.
You don't have to go to your state.
Over, Ed.
Okay.
Read the federal rules of procedure on the federal. You don't have to go to their court. You're taking it to the Supreme Court. That supersedes them.
Right.
And that's where you're going to do the motion to vacate the judgment, and you're going to point out your the faults, which is violations of your due process rights. See, that's what I mean by you're not going to go into all the other details pertaining to the old case. That's what I mean by changing your status. So they're not going to know what you're bringing into court. Why are you going to tell your enemies what you're bringing into court? You wait until you get your butt in court, and then you bring that shit in.
You know about the rules of surprise?
I don't
care. You know about the rules on surprise, Michelle?
Rules only apply to them. There are 2 sections of rules in all these courts that nobody reads. They just don't read it. That's the problem with people. They don't read the court proceedings of what different courts do.
Okay, well, I'll have to find out more about this court in Pennsylvania because I know the ones here do not. My experience here is you might as well go give 10 men a baseball bat and walk in there naked-handed and let them beat you up because that's what they do.
Well, that's what they're trying. Exactly. But once they know that you know that they can't get away with that bullshit, and you know how to handle them, and you know how to handle that judge, and you put that judge on notice that you're going to hold her accountable and them accountable. See, that's the part that people aren't putting forth in their when they go to court. There's more to it than just out the paperwork.
Ed, I have a new email address.
Okay, you got my email. Send it to me.
Well, mine's easy. It's Daniel Beeler. It's Daniel_Beeler @yahoo.com.
Okay, right now I'm just getting my computer warmed up, so let me get to that in a little bit.
Okay. You know my last name is Beeler, Beeler, and so it's just Daniel_Beeler @Yahoo. Anyway, I've wasted enough of your time tonight, and I hope I didn't run everybody else off the call.
So, anyhow, I'm back. Let's get back to what tonight's conversation is about. That's the Foreign American Registration Act, and that's dealing with Comey and filing on your public servants.
Well, I was just asking about that, and they said they were going to wait till you're back.
Ed, FARA is foreign agents.
What?
Yeah, that's true. Foreign Agent Registration Act. Let me type it up here. You got it right.
Okay.
And that's
what is that listed under, Ed?
We have it on new.org/Foreign Administration Registration part on the new .org trackers, and we have that, and we'll have the forms. We have most of the forms up there. We're getting the rest of the forms up there so people can have the forms right there. And that's on new .org trackers. We already have part of it up. We'll have the rest of it up shortly.
Okay.
So, and that's one point that's the main thing. I want to get people to comprehend, and this is where people are going, well, they're saying it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. And this
Yes, it does.
Well, this is the point that people have to comprehend this fact on how it works.
Well, if they'd been through what I'd gone through, they would comprehend how it works. That they're dealing strictly with foreign agents, and we need to throw these Brits out. Well, this is all foreign, and these are executive administrators. They are not judges; they are executive administrators.
Well, the black robe popes, technically, they're running religion in the courts. Exactly what they're doing. You know, I mean, if they're telling you that all of a sudden it's illegal to have a beer in public, Jesus, shit, everybody drank beer in public until the 1990s. We didn't go through all this headache and hassle.
Well,
one thing, we didn't go through all this until the Democrats decided to make money off it and start attacking people, dealing with drinking alcohol. And that goes all the way back to, what was that? The Salvation Army started that in the late 1890s, doing this, about drinking. Well, the whole point is that the problem is people were not taught responsibility of drinking.
Yeah, well, Ed, you know how I feel about that party thing. I don't care whether a snake's got diamonds on its back or stripes on its back. It's still a snake.
Well,
I don't care whether he's a Republican or Democrat. He's still a snake. If he's running for office, he's most likely a snake, or he'd be dead, or he wouldn't be in office.
Well, that's plausible.
I mean,
now you don't want to hurt their feelings. You know, that democracy movement. Come on, guys.
With the Bible.
They had democracy when Moses was up the mountain, Michelle. When Moses, it's in the Bible. It talks about democracy in the Bible. It says when Moses was up the mountain, they had democracy.
And the fact that the way the Bible puts God is a true democracy.
That's true. And that's what we don't want in this country. So I'm going to be putting up, too, on the Facebook, because I've got the Audit of National Security with the Foreign Administration Act, the new one, the 48 pages that walks people through what public employees are supposed to register. And not only that, immigrants have to register. Legal immigrants have to register with the Foreign Administration Registration Act. And that's where people don't comprehend. That's why these states, sanctioned cities, are doing this so they can allow illegals into our country, because they get federal funding by the churches to allow illegals in this country. They're saying if that stops, they're going to lose $2 billion right off the top, and they figure that's going to hurt the economy. Well, the only economy it's going to hurt is foreign agents' economy.
Yeah.
And really ain't going to hurt the grocery stores and that stuff, because we won't really see it through that way. So it's all fear-mongering. And you want to look at the 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act, Foreign Agent Registration Act. Okay, and we've got the enforcement, and that is 22 U.S.C. 611. And we have that up on the site now. And like I said, you folks can read the circumstances of the Foreign Registration Act and how to file on your elected and public servants. Because once people start filing this on the public servants, they can't run and hide anymore. And that is the point. We have to be adults to prove these facts. We're the adults that have to file it. Because these public servants ain't going to stand up unless we file, unless we're doing this. And that's the whole bottom line. See, everybody gets all these upset and they go in these different directions. I'm watching a lot of people on the internet going in different directions that are getting hurt and screwing up things. And they're not filing things properly. You know, you don't have, you have to know their guidelines of the rules, but you don't have to go by the rules. But you have to go by the guidelines of it when you're filing your instruments. Then that way they can't dismiss it or throw it out of court. And that's what they don't want us to know, the game, the rules of their game, of how to proceed in their game. To them, they
hold them in contempt
game,
of court,
like the Bible, it's a game to them. They don't care. They don't care about your reactions. They don't care about your children. They don't care about you. You know, and that's the point. It's sad. They don't even care about their own children when it really comes down to it. And you have to comprehend that these people really don't care. They get a paycheck to assault. They get a paycheck every time somebody dies. Okay, they don't care. They're getting paid when you're alive or dead, and they know it. And I always get disturbed when people say that they cut this training. They do get this training. I know it. I've seen some of their programs when they do the training. But the point is that if they could tell people this, people go, oh, okay, and they throw their hands up and give up instead of doing the research, most of all defending themselves. You know, and I'm putting that up right now, their audit structure, and I'll put it on Dave's site here in just a minute. This is the National Security Division Enforcement Administration of Foreign Agents Registration Act. This is the audit that was just recently done. This stuff does exist, but the only way that we're going to be able to start enforcing these rights if we, the people, start standing up and enforcing them for them, writing this stuff so this way it makes it easier for those people to just basically have a guidelines of what they're trying to accomplish. But like I said, Dave and I are not attorneys, we are not lawyers, and we're not responsible for your actions. You are responsible for your actions. So, and like I said, I'm putting this stuff up so people can read it, they can comprehend it. It is easy. It's not that difficult to read it. And the one that I put it up right now, and we'll have it up on the Facebook wall, in the site, is Audit of National Security Division Enforcement and Administration of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. This is the, what year was this published? This is a recent one published from the Inspector General. So it is really important to read this. This is this year's 2017 I'm going through. So I haven't had a chance to bring the other facts in. But the main point is I wanted to get in with the Foreign Administration Registration Act to educate people. You start filing this. Comey, they've been trying to get Comey out of the FBI for a couple of years now. It's been, you know, no big secret for the big boys up in the Capitol. They know he's been doing underhanded things. They know it, but they couldn't try to take him out unless they had actual reason. Well, there's been several people that I know personally involved who filed on Comey on this, you know, on this circumstances. I filed, and Dave and I filed on them in 2014 and 2015 on the Foreign Administration Act, when we sent that registered certified to the court system as well as Congress. So these men and women are getting it. They know it's out there. They're shocked because people are standing up, waking up, and making the filings happen. And that is the point, that we have to make the filings happen and prove to these people they are public servants. They are not the government. They have no legal authority. And that is the point, that we got to make sure that they comprehend this, that they do comprehend the facts on these things of what's going on. Because if we don't get it done, and nobody else is going to do it, these people ain't going to do it on themselves. And that's where I was talking to some people last night, that we have to file the criminal complaints on these domestic terrorists. We have to file them. If we don't file them, nobody else is going to file them. They're not going to get done. I was talking to another gentleman dealing with this the other night, dealing with filing this because of his court case. And he's doing this, no offense, they do this, they do that. We already know what they do. It's reading the forms, how to file on them, so that way they cannot get away with their domestic terrorism that's going on. And, it's very important. I had some other things I wanted to go on this. Let me pull my other page up. It is really reading this, how it works with the taxes, with civil rights. Remember, civil rights is British rights. That's the point that people don't get it. Civil rights belong to citizens. There's a difference of lawful, bloodline, and legal immigration. And that's where conflict of a lot of people I see are getting it. They're having conflicts because I was on a talk show Friday when they were getting a little upset at me because I was bringing out the facts that, you have to be 5 or more generations to be lawful in this country. And if you're not registered legal, I don't care if it's your grandchildren. You and your grandchildren on a plane out. Don't ask us to have feeling and compassion for you because you didn't have feeling and compassion when you invaded our country, eating our food, taking our water, taking our jobs. The United States is not open to the world. That's the point. We've never been open to the world, and if you read the Constitution and Immigration Act, even going back to 1774, when they started putting the Immigration Act originally together, they were doing this to protect the bloodline so we could pass down to our children and grandchildren. That way they have freedom rights. That way they know that they're not going to starve. That way they have water to pass on. So we don't want to get all locked up and all this stuff. That's why it's so important to comprehend filing on these elected and public servants so this way they know that if they're not registered, the criminal charges have to be filed on them. And people, you have to file the criminal charges. The district attorney ain't going to file criminal charges. I was arguing with somebody that the night before last. And literally arguing with them. And it's like, how do you expect the DA? Well, I expect them to do their job. They're not doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm going, you have to realize their job is not to work for you. Just like the police department. Their job is not to work for you. Their job are revenue agents for the Pope, the Vatican only. Tax collecting, the money goes to the Pope. That's why the Supreme Court ruled that the government has all the funding under the FDCPCA insurance. It's there, okay? The money is there, and that's the point that we need to work together, open up that channel so we've got it. And one way of opening up the channel, what I'm realizing and what I'm doing the other research on, is through the Foreign Administration Registration Act. You start filing on the police officer, the county clerk, the judge. Anybody who works for the public is liable to register. At first in the congressional TV show I was watching, or congressional hearing, they were trying to say you got to be in a specific government position to register. Well, no, the Congress said no, it applies to everyone. And even the senator who was doing the interview on Comey at the time, and I put that video up, even admitted it, he was registered and he had to register. So people know it. People in the government, elected and public servants, registered agents, know they have to, but the Democrats haven't been enforcing anything. For years, they haven't been enforcing any of our laws administration. None of it. That's why everything is so crazy. Everything's out of whack. People have been losing things left and right. Because the democracy gives people the rights to rape, rob, and pillage, and everybody's hanging behind their structure on it to protect themselves. Not you, not I. Because remember, they don't believe you and I have rights to protection. They don't believe you and I have rights. And that's the main thing that these people really do believe, that we don't have rights. And that is the point that, and until we stand up to them and start like filing the Foreign Registration Act, filing these other structures on them, that's the only way we're going to start winning. All right? Because, either we start having a shootout with these public servants, or we start filing it and do the best we can of what we got to utilize in their system and expose it from the inside out. And that means all of us are going to have to work together to expose it. Because it's like the one thing, I got to say, the bizarre, stupid, moronic thing I ever saw in my life, is Fukushima, judgment against man's sins. And I know that people run this paper and they run usually better. But blaming Fukushima on God? There ain't no God, number one, in my opinion. Everybody knows my opinion. But number two, I've never seen somebody write such a stupid, moronic statement in my life when man was born not to build Fukushima. They were warned not to put it there. They knew the ground was not stable. And if you ever read the history before they even started development, they were saying they shouldn't. If there was an earthquake, it would cause a national disaster. Well, everybody wants money. They don't care about life, liberty, or, their bloodline or anything. It's all about money, what I could get today. But when people write this, that the Bible says this, and that's what happened, don't be a mandatory moron. Because man caused it. God had nothing to do with it, and or the Great Spirit, the way I talk, had nothing to do with it. Man did it. Man wrote the Bible to control man. He didn't write it to give man peace, because there's no freedom in the Bible. It's religion controlled. If you don't do what they say, that's when you go to court and they write you tickets and all this other stuff and the harassment we get, because they're judging us by the Bible when we go there, and we're not supposed to have the Bible in the situation of the laws or the House or Senate at all. It's not part of it. The Bible is not part of our government, and if you actually read the history, it was never part of the structure at all. Most of the Bible's structure and hymns didn't even come in until the 1950s and 60s in songs. Because we were a republic form of government. You didn't do that. You didn't mix the Bible in politics. Now, all these people, and it's fun going, well, God put man in charge for the Bible, and they're supposed to have government control. So, and if you don't pay your structure, paying for the air and the water to live, you're upsetting God. Well, that's the devil. Because if there's a God, why would he put the devil in our life to cause the problems? He'll say, oh, he did that because we have to have good and evil. Oh, what kind of, that's another moronic statement to me. Good and evil. Why can't we just have happiness and goodness? Man can create that. Man can make that happen instead of going through the confusion and the anger and stupidity. But, like I said, when I saw that came out, is Fukushima judgment against man's sins? When people use God in these type of texts, to me it's moronic, because God has nothing to do with man destroying man. That's like saying, oh, God shot the bullet, shot the deer, that put the deer on the table for me. I didn't do it. I didn't get the deer. I gutted the deer. I shot the deer. I've done it many times. I'm not going to sit there and say God this and God that, because I'm man. I have to eat. I have to survive. But when people use this in terminology that says, oh, the water's been poisoned, like some of the people were saying over in the Midwest, dealing with some of the rivers that were contaminated. God did that. God didn't do it. Man did it. So, it's like, it's very disturbing. And so people will say even God done this with the Foreign Administration Act. God did this. Man wrote these things to protect man, and it's up to man to start protecting man and his children by comprehending what this is. That is the whole point, is comprehending what, why, and how. That's like when you read a Senate bill, what, why, and how. I got a few I have to read and get back in the Capitol here. But it's knowing what, why, and how, reading it, comprehending it, and what the personal gain is of it. Because people do it for personal gain. If you're not getting personal gain, you're not doing it for yourself. You know that. Everybody knows that people don't do most things for, without getting a piece of the pie, because most people besides me and Dave do all this stuff, bringing it out so, we're not sitting there charging. I mean, I'm watching other people that thought we were going to work with, and all of a sudden they're putting up sites, and I've been watching them using the information that we have done the research, and now they're charging memberships to these groups and stuff. And a lot of it that they put together off of what me and Dave wrote. Fine, that's okay. But for people to start charging, that's what disturbs me. Because, everybody says, oh, I have to make a living. Well, education is supposed to be there for our protection. It is not supposed to be there to make a living and destroying people's livelihood for personal and financial gain. That's the one thing. It just gets very disturbing to me when I see this, where people are out for their own personal gain, that, we all should be working with each other, so this way we're protecting the bloodline and we're protecting ourselves in this country. Because if we don't protect this country, there is no other place in the world that has a contract called the Constitution that saves us from that. People say, oh, the Constitution ain't yours. It's our defense against our servants. Once that is gone, you are going to be in a far worse position than you could ever imagine. Because once that is gone, it's going to be like what they took Gaddafi out. They raided his country, took everything over. And anybody knew about Gaddafi, if you were 5 more generations in his country, you didn't pay doctor bills. You didn't pay medical, dental bills. And if you got married, they gave you $50,000 to go buy a home. You had free transportation. That's where people don't read real history. That is the frustration we're all living. But like I said, the main thing is start learning how to file on your public servants in the Foreign Administration Registration Act. The other points that I would like to bring up that, let me get over to Facebook, because we've been doing a lot of work on the website here lately. And so we do have a section that we're going to be putting up for affidavits. So it's public affidavits. So if you're going to file an affidavit, we have a structure for affidavits so it can be public. Then we have another structure on our website. I told you we're setting this up so we can put the court cases. People can read it, start backing each other up. We have another link now. It's called Public Notice Board. So you can put your affidavits on one, your public notices on the other one. So this way, we're setting it up. So this way, we have a structure that puts us into a place. Okay? And like I put on the site, that this is not a democracy. This is a republic education site devoted to derived from the Constitution. And on these sites, we will not put no religious affidavits allowed, period. I don't want to hear religion. It says freedom from religion, or of, but I like from because you're supposed to have your religious belief for your religion. Okay, I don't want to hear your religion. You don't want to hear my religion. So that's where we're not supposed to be talking religion, period. Because religion is not a conversation of or in government with the people. That's the one thing that we got away from, and now all of a sudden our country is falling back to that uncontrollable structure where people are going off on religion. Okay? And so a woman's body, a woman's right, and that's so simple because either she has a constitutional right to her body or she don't. You know, you have a constitutional right to travel. Either you do or you don't. You have a constitution to build your home without permits. Either you do or you don't. So this is the point of separating this. So we're putting up these new links up on the wall. So, and then we're working on with Citizens Action Network. We'll have stuff up there from Mike and his structure. We even have Mike's letter that he even signed and served Trump up there. We'll set up that. Dave has one too. I'm not sure where Dave's is at right now, because I know Dave did one. So we'll gotta get this stuff up. So we're utilizing this site for public record for us and you. So we can start putting up the public notices, court. So when you file your affidavit on your public servant under the 1938 Foreign Registration Act, we can put it in the affidavit, and then that way when people start looking at their public servants, they get to know who, what, why is being filed in their district, in their area. And remember, please don't use the word district, because that's the British terminology. There's a lot of words that we are working to get away from, not to use their words in court using the lawful terms that are in the law, but are in the Constitution and the court cases. You know, you don't want to use attorneys and lawyers' words. You know, I mean, it's an affidavit to move something, not a motion. Because you start giving them the authority on the words that you use, and that's the point that a lot of us are learned the hard way. We're still learning, and a lot of us have seen, and now we're speaking up and going, oh, that is right. We shouldn't be using these certain words. So, I mean, you know, and the main thing is, the bottom line is filing your criminal complaints. You might not think it matters today, but in time it does matter. It does start coming out and proving the facts. You know. Anyhow, Dave, I just got in, so give me some feedback here, Dave.
Well, G.O.D. in our vocabulary now officially means granted on demand.
I like that. So we got to put that up on the wall, that our word for God is granted on demand.
There you go.
That works. I like that. That's a point that people cannot try to use that against me in a conflict of interest.
Well, now here's, you got to remember, law was written before the Bible, wasn't it?
Well, that depends. That was all overseas from another territory, another country.
It's true.
So, you know, and it's like to bring their stuff here, you know.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, I figured you might like that feedback.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. We'll put that up on the site.
Okay.
You know, I like that one. Granted on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Word God. So that's a good word that we could use, and in that way, when I say it, people will have to start learning how to use it that way instead of people classifying me.
There you go, buddy.
You know. So, yeah. But anyhow, I don't know where you guys were getting off on the conversation you had tonight, but
well, we were basically covering the courts and the criminal activity in them, and how people needed to work around it and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it went pretty good, I thought. Anyway,
we got another link up here that Dave's working on. It's called Frank's Fraud Banker and Mortgage. We'll start be putting structure up what him and Michelle are putting together. So we'll walk people through it, because knowledge of walking people through, they can pick it up a lot easier. Sometimes their own research, because people get channel block, and we all been there ourselves, so we know how that one goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been fighting this doggone upper respiratory all day today. So I didn't get a whole lot done today,
anyways.
But it's been a pain in the butt with this thing. So, anyway, it's good to have you back on the show. How'd the doctor go?
Well, I'm still dealing with certain structures of it, so we're still trying to figure out the extent of some of these circumstances. So we're working on that.
Mm-hmm. Give you anything for pain?
No, it's always that one, because in Oregon, they go, oh, people don't need pain medication because everybody's a junkie and a drug addict. This is a mindset. Stupid and not responsible in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and so everybody's got to blame someone for what they did instead of taking responsibility. That's why I don't agree with drug and alcohol programs. Oh, I was a drug addict and stuff. No, you didn't love your children. No, you didn't want to be part of their life. This is the way it is. You can't blame the drugs because it's your responsibility. I grew up around it, folks. I literally watched it from all. So I don't have compassion when it comes down to that. You can still do what you want to do, but you can still be responsible.
That's true.
So, but this is the one thing that we're dealing with Oregon on the recall with Kate Brown. If you're from Oregon, we need pushing on that one. I will have the other structures finished up. I've been working on several instruments, but I'm bouncing around to make sure everything is put together in a chronicle order and written correctly. I will have the updated one on the police department here shortly. I am working on the ones for the court system, and I will have that one done, going and walking you through the court systems, how it actually goes through the structure of the Vatican, through Christianity and the Roman Catholic Church, how they're running this. And people, you got to wake up. The churches are doing this. When you go to your church and you wonder why the cops know this about you from your church, come on, the pastor rats on you. Remember, the pastors get paid to rat. Today, they get paid to rat. They're not supposed to, keep anything you tell them in confidence anymore. So, it's all out there. People know it. So what else were you getting on in the court structures?
Oh, that was just about it. We kind of laid out on them that most of the courts don't even convene the court to hear the matter. They call the court to session, which means there's two courts talking to each other. It's a total denial of your case in their court. So if you go back into your court records, if they only called the court to session to hear the matter, it was one court talking to another. It's only when they convene the court that they're actually hearing the matter between you and the prosecutor. So people need to comprehend what the status is. Are they flying the gold fringe flag or not? That's color law fraud. So we got to start holding them accountable. So that was about it. And then of course, I commented on Red Skelton's commentary on the first show over the democracy and the republic. So, yeah. So, I think what people just needed to have that explained to them a little better. What's the difference between a republic and a democracy?
Oh, yeah. So what did you get into it? Yeah, I agree with you.
Immediately after we played it.
Huh?
We got into it immediately after we played Red's thing.
Oh, okay.
So it was fresh in their mind and led to what he had to say. So. Well,
I think it was a good video. I think we might play that, probably bring that in the following week when we get to that, because next week we're going to have a very special guest on with us is Rob Ryder.
Yeah, that'll be a great show. So make sure, people, if you're listening to this show tonight, Rob Ryder will be here a week from today. we're going to turn it over to him and let him go. It's not going to be a Q&A session from Ed and I. It's going to be let him explain what he's doing, why he's doing it, and how he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said just keep that in mind.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But
no, that's fine.
Because, I mean, a lot of people have watched a lot of his videos, picked up on things, figured out it into their instruments of some knowledge. So that's the best part. We want to be able to bring his knowledge forward, because anybody Rob's videos, most people know Rob does his research. You know, he reads it right from the books to the general public. You know, and he's got one, even claim your name before they do. And if you watch that, you know, that helps you claim your name. Everybody wants to go do, I own me. I filed to claim to own me. You know, so, I mean, I didn't file and do it the way a lot of others I've heard done it, because I own me. I'm not giving me up for somebody else to, you know, even have power of attorney over. Because once you get power of attorney over, you lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then, you know, it's interesting because they put Magnitsky Act in 2012. You know, and it's supposed to be that lawyers are supposed to be banned from talking to Russian lawyers.
Wow.
Have you read it?
No.
Oh, I'll put it up on your wall right now.
Okay.
But see, this is the one thing, is getting this information out so people can sit there and read what me and Dave are bringing to you. You know, is looking at what we're bringing to you, comprehending what we're bringing to you. Okay, but it's still your responsibility to be adults to read this stuff. You know, like I said, I had to go off. I couldn't believe that Barefoot News put this out, and I know the guys at Barefoot News. You know, is Fukushima guards judgment against man's sins. I mean, how can you do something that man wrote, man built, man did it, God had nothing to do with it?
Hey, Ed?
Yeah, go ahead.
I also wanted to, I sent you a message through Facebook. Judge Eugene, she is addressing the IRS, and she's talking about the courts as far as them committing a crime.
Who is this now?
Judge Jadine, I think that's...
Oh, yeah, yes. I'm glad that...
And she's talking about the IRS and
yeah,
the court.
She's been acting the stuff that I'm posting on her group that's trying to put me a member in her group.
Well, I sent you a video through Facebook.
Okay, we'll get some of that
about
stuff
the IRS and how the courts are committing a crime. And she's talking about the governors and the senators, you know, how they're all corrupt. Pretty good video, actually.
Okay, we'll have to get that on our walls for everybody. But you got to realize that governors and state public officials are actually starting to pick up on this stuff. And some of them are realizing that they have been duped in their education. And others are realizing the other ones knew it in their education, and they're just making millions off of us. You know, hang on a second. I got to go flip something on the stove. I put on some food when I got home.
That's what's been happening, Ed, and there's, they've been getting by this crap, and now that we're starting to expose it, they're going, oh, shit.
So Judge Janine is bringing it out.
And Judge is bringing it out to them now, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it. It's one of them versus one of them.
If I may.
So, yeah.
Go ahead, man. I'm kind of confused on. You guys keep on saying criminal complaints, but are we whiny babies, or is it a criminal charge?
They're criminal charges, criminal complaints. You file it with your sheriff's department, local law enforcement, courts of law. They all get copies of it.
Or you can go through the civil court and it could be moved into a criminal setting.
What they try to do is get you to go the civil route instead of the criminal route. That way they get protected somewhat. But yeah, it's criminal, period. You file the criminal charge and then you go from there.
If I may.
Yeah, I may. Go ahead.
Yeah. Earlier y'all were talking about the gold fringes on the United States flag. I've been to a court where there are gold fringes on the state flag and also a gold eagle above that, along with the gold tassels. Does that stand for the same thing as if it was on the United States flag?
That's right. Got to remember the gold eagle, the spear, all that changes the jurisdiction of that flag.
So even if I took in a United States flag, and
the only way you're going to take in a United States flag into a court is if it has nothing on top of the flagpole. A standard American flag on top of a standard flagpole.
No ball on top.
But also I would need to take in the state flag that I'm in also to replace that one too?
No.
Yep. Well, you got to remember, yeah, to a degree he does, because some of the state flags have gold fringe on them too.
No, you got a point, but you need to take the state flag in before it became a corporation.
I think that's what he's talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'll upset them big time. You just take the other flag and you throw it in the corner somewhere on the floor, and
well, they'll get a little upset for that one.
I told the judge one time, you either remove that flag or I'm going to throw it through the window.
So how did that go?
He kind of frowned on it. I said, "Hey, you're running a jurisdictional fraud against me, so you have it your way. I'll hold you accountable."
In the military jurisdiction.
Yeah, he's running a military jurisdiction in a civilian court. Exactly what they're doing by that gold fringe flag.
Aren't they? I'm sorry. I was also going to ask, aren't they supposed to have a military book there also if they're flying martial law?
Yeah, well, actually, the gold fringe flag is a martial law flag. If the gold fringe goes all the way around the flag, it's a war flag. But if it's on three sides, that's martial law.
If I may.
What I mean.
Good. Well, read Executive Order 10834 by Dwight David Eisenhower. That's the best way I've ever heard it explained. What a standard American flag is and what a gold fringe flag is. The gold fringe is the fourth color of the flag, which mutilates the flag, carries a 1-year prison term.
And you have to file it. Everybody goes, "Oh, you got to wait for a district attorney." No, you don't. That's the one thing. You don't have to wait for a district attorney to file anything. Because the district attorney works for you. And you have to file it. Sorry about that. But this is the problem that we're all living with all this hell we're going through with these people. And it's a living hell we're living with these people. You know? I always talk when people talk about hell. And it's like, wake up, people, we're living it.
We're right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you go to the VA, the place is just full of gold fringe flags. And of course, they'll argue that they're law officers, and of course, when you tell them they're policy officers, they get upset. But if you go to the West Virginia Capitol Dome, on top of the Capitol Dome, you'll see a fasci. On top of the fasci, you'll see the globe, and on top of the globe, you'll see a phoenix. And that's on top of the West Virginia Supreme Court. It says fascism, world based on fascism is rising.
Oh,
if
wow.
you go to the 4th District Court in Beckley, walking through the door there, on the side, there's a 7-foot high fasci. Makes it clear you're walking in amongst fascism. On either side of that, you'll see a placard on the wall with a fasci laying horizontal like Colorado has, with a phoenix perched on it, stating that fascism over the people is rising. What do you do? What would happen if you brought the civil flag, the United States civil flag, in there?
U.S. flag of peace.
Yes, the U.S. flag of peace.
What?
You would challenge the court. You would challenge the court by asking them. First of all, you're not being represented in the proper jurisdiction.
Right. If you brought in a civil flag, I'm talking about the civil flag, one of the vertical stripes, the one that doesn't represent layers of government over the people. That has vertical stripes, government amongst the people, and has a white field of blue stars.
That is basically the peace flag.
Yes, that's a peace
United
flag.
States peace flag.
Yes, a civil flag, yes.
Yeah, I made a comment to the U.S. Court of Claims that I would only appear in a constitutional court with a constitutional oath of judge with a constitutional oath of office, flying a standard American flag and a U.S. flag of peace.
What they say, I don't care whether you appear or not, or...
Actually, we got a bullshit letter back from them, which means stating that, how was it, Michelle? They said, the Court of Claims, the letter, they didn't give legal advice. For legal advice, we told them what we expected when we came into court.
Yeah. So you had to give them a notice of demand?
Wasn't really. Excuse me. It wasn't really a notice of demand. It was sort of a heads up. When we come into court and we file our case, this is what we expect. A bloodline American.
Yeah.
We were talking at the court record.
This is what I want in and for the record.
Okay. Well, I'll yield here and let the other gentleman come back.
Okay. Yeah, when these courts start recognizing the fact that we're under their flag scheme, oh shit! I'll bet you're going to see some changes made.
Well, you can challenge them.
Because you can file the criminal charges on them for color law fraud.
Mm-hmm. And that's what people need to do.
Challenge them under a written.
If I may. If you go to
challenge the jurisdiction of the court, they have to prove they have it then. They have to prove it. We don't.
Under a writ comment.
Under a writ.
Oh, hey, Dave, we got another May. Go ahead, May.
If I may, if you go to the magistrate court here in Monroe County, and you look at the back corner, there's 5 different flags back there.
Wow. So which one of them has jurisdiction?
They just removed the flag when I went in there. because I was challenging the jurisdiction of the court because I was charging him with conspiracy to interfere with justice. And the claimant in the case didn't show up. They called her up and she decided not to show.
Well, that should have been a mandatory win.
It was. He asked for permission to dismiss the case, the complaint. The judge asked for permission to dismiss the complaint.
Okay.
And I had enough fires on my fingertips at that time that I said, yeah, go ahead, dismiss this complaint. But I also held the complaint as evidence of what's going on. Because it was sworn under oath, but it was fraudulently brought.
Rento.
So what?
You can challenge the court under a writ rento.
We'll eventually get that up in the court section of what we're putting up. Because we're trying to put all this stuff up on the site so people can go read a basic intro, so this way it gives them an idea and they're on their own. Because Dave and I, we are not attorneys, we are not lawyers. I do get disturbed when people would call up, and I don't mind helping them, and then next thing you know, they're telling, their lawyer and all these people, I'm their lawyer now, and it really irritates me because that's when I just went through this not long ago again, and I asked the individual, it's like, how much are you getting paid to set me up? Because you're not following through. To me, that's warning flags. If people don't follow through, I'm terrified to help them.
You mean you don't attorn?
I don't what?
Attorn?
Attorn what?
Attorn the truth.
Not my problem. I'm not part of their case.
What I'm saying, I was being facetious. You don't attorn the truth. You don't twist it. Make a lie out of it.
And yeah, I got you. Took me on to that, but yeah, see the whole point about this, and the one thing Michelle is right. You don't want to give them all your evidence, and the thing is, you have to make sure that you file for a 12-man and woman jury under Title 3 of the Constitution, Article 3 of the Constitution. And they get freaked out when you start filing your rights to a jury trial. Because they lose the court at that point because the jury is above the judge. They don't want juries to know this because in the state of Oregon, 1999, they were taking all the jury handbooks and throwing them in the garbage that told the jury of their rights as a jury, that they were above the judge and everything. Now, the new handbooks, they say the judge will explain the law to you, and then you have to decide what the judge told you was true or not. What kind of bullshit is that? Because people get afraid because they know if they speak wrong, they're not protected because the cops are going to pull them over and harass them. They know this stuff.
Well, maybe we should make these judges come in the courtroom under oath like they're supposed to be.
Well, yeah, but the other point, we start filing under the Foreign Administration Registration Act and writing the Department of Justice under that and requesting to see their registration numbers, even attorney registration numbers, public pretenders registration numbers. And if they're not filed, then you file like has been done on Comey. Because we have some tools here that we can start utilizing now. So we start backing up the people right now making some of these decisions, and they start seeing that people are comprehending what they did. Oh, they start seeing people back them up, and then they start doing more and more. But when people don't back them up, that's what scares these public officials. It does, because they're not going to go against it unless the public is supporting them. And a lot of them, it depends on how well you know them, they'll bluntly tell you to your face on those things.
You bet they will.
You know, but it's personal. Because remember, they're caught in the middle of their circumstances of what they got in office for. You know, it depends on who they sold their soul to.
Good point.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Under statute here in West Virginia, the prosecuting attorney is also the state agency's attorney.
That's right. They're like that in each and every state.
Well, how can he be the state's attorney and be the prosecuting attorney and be prosecuting on behalf of the state? And then they have these MDT meetings, these multidisciplinary team meetings, where they glean things, or even glean things that don't exist, without a record, and no Miranda rights required or allowed, and if you don't cooperate, it's held against you.
That's right, and when they bring it up in court and it goes on record and you publicly don't object to it and you don't write a letter object to afterwards, that's how they say it's on record, so it's admissible in court.
Well, when you file a writ of mandamus to object to it and they don't address it.
I don't want anything.
But that's where you have to file it on the police bulletin board, the county commissioner's wall. You make it on all public structures. You know, that's the point why we start put this stuff up so people can start putting their affidavits and their structure of what their complaints are, their filings. The public notice board. So this way, there's a public notice board here, folks. We know it's there. It's publicly being sought and read. So it's a public notice, so we're using that as a media public notice, so that way it is structured as a legal notice. So that's why we're setting it up, so people can go back and click on it, print it off, and it'll come out with a date and a structure on it. See, we're trying to put this thing up together so, you know, we're trying to make some of the process easy for the average person, you know, excuse me, Lord, the average man or woman, you know, and even child and teenagers. So I'm going to be putting up a homeschooling structure on the kids' stuff. You know, so that way the kids got videos. I'm going to put some comedy videos up there to actually explain the system, and then roll done comedy videos. So this way, you know, we can start getting the kids enticed to know what their country really is about. Not a democracy or republic. That's why I put there's no religious affidavits that we're going to be allowing, period.
Yeah, they're not going to like that.
You're not going to like that?
No.
Well, we don't want politics. We don't want any religious structure tied into this, because the religious structure was not actually the foundation of the Constitution. As our forefathers wrote in their little memoir papers, they didn't want religion involved at all in the Constitution or in the structure of it, because they knew, even in their writings, said that they knew religion would control man, and at that point the Constitution would be invalid. And they knew this. They wrote it back then. So I encourage people to read some of the congressional records of some of these men and women, what they wrote back then. And they wrote things differently than the way we're taught to believe it today.
Oh, of course.
You know? They wrote it for the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the point, too, that people have to read when you're reading something from the 1900s or 1910s or the 1930s or 50s. It's the way people were thinking at that age and era of that time. And you have to incorporate that in your thoughts, too, when you read different things. You know, what was the time? What was the era? How were they taught in the media? Or what was going on the TV when it first came on? What were they showing? The other one was, what was that? Tell the Truth is a good movie, or a good talk show they had in the 50s, 60s. You know, oh, to tell the truth, to tell the truth. So that way, you know, you're telling the truth, so you're convicting yourself. Yeah, I mean, some of these TV game shows they had were very mind-altering to the general public.
Sure they were.
You know, and people didn't comprehend it. You know, most news stations today ain't news. All their news is on selling a product. An idea. Oh, we need to sell counseling. We need to sell drug and alcohol programs. You know, we need to sell prayer studies. So donate, 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 give your money, give your money. If people stop donating and giving their money to these agencies, that would kill the big boys in a hurry. You know, think about where their funding comes from.
Right.
How it comes.
Well, look at the politicians today. They no sooner get in office than they're across the street trying to come up funding for their next campaign.
Right.
We've already discussed the term limits established in the Constitution. Did anybody ever question that? I don't know.
I don't know. Anybody got a question at this point? Okay. Bell, what's ringing the bell for?
Attention, there is 15 minutes left until 8 o'clock.
Okay, gotcha. So we got the timer going.
I like the clock idea.
You know? So, yeah. But, I mean, this is the bottom line that comes down, folks, is that if you don't read it, you don't comprehend it, you're not dealing with it, and you're protecting yourself. That's the whole point. You have to protect yourself. You know, these people are not there to protect you. It's like when I was on a conversation Friday night and I was getting into it with people about police, and I said, why don't you look it up? It even says police work for the mayor, city council, and they're debt collectors for them. Their actual job description. They're not to work for the general public anymore. You know, that's the point that people don't read. When they changed to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, when they put the Children's Act through, and I always ask people, please try to read that. Because if you read that Children's Act, it says how much judges are getting paid to their retirement. Shows you what social workers are getting paid by stealing children. All right? They know by stealing children, they're keeping the priests working. They're keeping the homes working.
Where do I find that at, Ed?
Find what at?
That Children's Act that you're talking about.
1993, Bill Clinton's Children Act.
Okay, 1993, Bill Clinton's Children's Act. That's what I wanted to know.
Right, and this is the point. I mean, even it came out in one of Hillary Clinton's video, how proud she was, because, and I got to find that video again, because I wanted to put it in one of the letters I was putting together. So that way people can see what she was talking about in her video, what she did to steal your children.
I saw that in one of her campaign speeches.
Yeah. And that act was how they were able to steal children. Everybody thought it was to protect children. It was to protect them they couldn't be charged for raping children. They couldn't be charged for alleged crimes, and if it wasn't proven, they couldn't even be brought forward. Oh, those attorneys done a wonderful job writing this structure up. Like in the state of Oregon, they changed Section 10 of the Oregon State Constitution. Call it democracy now, and all the land belongs to the Democrat attorneys.
That was without the consent of the people, too. So that acts treason.
Well, we know that, but, I mean, it's got to be filed on. You know, we can sit there and argue, and that's what I was on the other talk show I was on yesterday on. We could argue about this stuff, but until we stop arguing, putting it together, putting it in paper, putting it in writing, so that way there's no conflict of interest out there, And then once they start seeing it, they're going to have to respond to it.
Now, the marbles in my brain are rattling again. The Declaration of Independence is kind of rolling around in there. And in the beginning it says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and assume among the powers of the earth the separate equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires they should declare the causes which impels them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Who are they talking about?
We, and the Creator is God. As you call it God, I call it the Creator, Mother Earth.
Oh, the laws of nature and nature's God.
Creator comes from the Indian term.
They're also talking about faith, and the Constitution is based on faith and the Ten Commandments.
Yeah,
there we go.
Faith in your Constitution, it doesn't exist. People have faith in a book that destroys their family. That's faith. If people had faith in the Constitution and actually believed in the Constitution for what it was written to protect us by, from religion, corporations, tyranny, you know, there ain't no real force left in the United States, the 48 states. I mean, real force.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I just got a question. I just heard Michelle mention that the Constitution was based off the Ten Commandments. Where?
I didn't hear her say that, but did you say that, Michelle?
Regarding faith.
She was regarding faith.
Oh, faith, not off from the Ten Commandments. Okay. Because, you know, the whole thing is that the natives already had a structure before they were invaded. They didn't have courts. They didn't have the stuff that's going on today. People grew up in this country with respect to one another, and if they know they screwed up, they had to deal with the man. You know, and this
Commandments was added to the Constitution
realistically until after the Civil War. And it really didn't change until FDR put his crap in administrative rules. Prior to that, none of this crap ever existed. They've been rewriting history, changing it. I have witnessed them changing instrument documents, including on YouTube. I've been watching them changing instruments on Yahoo, Google, you know, Startpage. They're changing and rewriting history is what they've been doing for the last 6 years. I've been watching it change. That's why, you know, when you find the right stuff on it, I tell people, save it. Because if you don't save it and it becomes deleted or altered, at least you have the original one.
Well, Dave and I found a document based on the Constitution, and we have to go over it and read it. But I know that the Constitution was based also on faith pertaining to the Ten Commandments, not religion, but the Ten Commandments. And that was added to the Constitution.
It was suggested by Adams. That's in Adams's writing.
Right. So
he said in his writing, if religion took over, there wouldn't be no freedom.
That is correct. That's why it was based on faith, and only the Ten Commandments.
Right, and the faith is the Constitution, is the faith to have faith in that instrument.
Right.
Because the Constitution gave us freedom, not the Bible.
That's correct, and that's why the Ten Commandments were added to the Constitution.
They were technically not added into the structure. They were always put on tabloids out from the public buildings because it was technically a religious point of view they couldn't bring in, and that was decided in 1778 when they were ratifying the Constitution. Because any part of religion goes against the First Amendment.
I'm not talking about religion.
Ten Commandments
faith, and the Ten Commandments is
Ten Commandments is religion. Faith is not.
Not religion. The Ten Commandments is not religion.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's religion.
That's religion.
No, that's a statement being made so we would know the difference between faith and religion.
Religion is not even supposed to be part of us. That's your faith in your home, not to be discussed in public meetings, not to be discussed on a street corner. That's a personal right. And that's what the whole structure of the First Amendment was based on.
Right. And that's why the Ten Commandments was not based on religion. It was there to put in place for those to separate and know the difference between the two. It wasn't based on religion.
And religion is not even supposed to be any part of the Constitution. I just argued that the other night, Friday night. Because it even says in some of the congressional records that we put in our writings, and we did that with Eric Holder, and we did that to the treason charges on the House and Senate when we put that paperwork in 2013, Dave and I. And I know, I put it all in there with the dates and their own records.
Ten Commandments is not...
You mean that unrebutted affidavit?
Yes, the unrebutted affidavit when they started changing administrative rules. That was very interesting how they started changing administrative rules after that was served on them.
Right.
Because Dave and I witnessed some of the stuff being said on TV, and we're going back and forth. We know where that came from. So, I mean, and the thing is that the whole structure of this country is supposed to be freedom to hunt and fish and provide for oneself without being in the commercial claws of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they started bringing banks in and all this and started doing this money stuff after the Civil War, because prior to the Civil War, there was only a few banks across the country, 37 in big cities, and that was it. Outside the counties, they didn't have banks. It's in the banking record. And that's the one thing I do encourage people to go read, and Michelle was the first one that started bringing a lot of this out with the banking acts and stuff, and you really need to read this stuff, and especially before you get mortgages. Knowing what they can and cannot do, because we've even got the paperwork that says the city, counties, and state and banks cannot even own property or regulate property.
Right.
And that's in the Banking Act itself. That is a situation that people, and I hear this because when I was on the talk show Friday, so many people are going, well, why should I read all this stuff? They're supposed to know it. They're supposed to handle it. And it's like, so in other words, you're telling you need somebody else to handle your affairs? You're not responsible?
Well, you know what? Ed? Earlier we were talking about the courts. Remember, it's all about the attorneys. It's about the bar, B-A-R,
British Registered, the King and Queen of England.
So what we have to do is challenge the bar when we cite jurisdiction regarding the courts.
Yes,
and we need to start using the term personage because... Pardon?
That's what I was saying.
Because when you start bringing in the attorneys, because remember, they're the ones that are addressing the courts.
Right, but that's
so
where
when you start using the term personage, in other words, with barratry comes personage, where personage is a form of a crime, and they can't bring in court personage. So you guys need to look that up.
Well, that's why Dave keeps saying a conflict of interest statement.
Right.
And you want to make sure you file that in court, you want it in writing, before you get to court. See, this
Absolutely.
is what make
that's
them
where the conversion comes
court.
in.
They sit there when they go to court. They go into court and they bring their evidence in, and then they want to tell the judge. You have to file it before you get there, preferably on front and back of the paper. Because if he flips the paper and it's on the other side, he cannot say he didn't see it.
Well, here's another problem. What people are doing is they're bringing in their paperwork, but they're not applying it to the evidence. And if you put your exhibits in there and you say Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2 as to the terms as you're outlining.
Exhibit and Evidence 1, Exhibit Evidence 2.
Right. Then they can't come back and say it's hearsay. And
you have to put in your evidence.
Which would be the same scenario, just as the registering your car, under a license. It's the same scenario.
Mm-hmm. So, but that's one thing that was going into
those outlines to show your what you're stating in court.
See, that is the one thing. When you're going into these courts, you have to file this before you get there. Okay, and, Michelle's got a point in evidence, and Dave and I have brought that up before. You have to put your evidence lined out. You have to put it in the court before you get there. Okay, and then when it goes to the Court of Appeals, this is where people get confused how the Court of Appeals work. When you put your evidence in and lay it in, then when it goes to the Court of Appeals, you've already got your evidence that the court didn't do it, so the Court of Appeals has to go by the evidence entered into the case. So if you have evidence entered into the case, the Court of Appeals has to review that first before they review the judges' and attorneys' records. Read the Handbook of Court of Appeals.
If I may.
Nailing the Court of Appeals in this fashion. See, if you don't put it as evidence in the structure, outlining it for the Court of Appeals, that's how they throw it out. It's so simple. I've been through the Court of Appeals. And when I did my case, they couldn't throw it out. They freaked out. I had a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And then somehow, out of the wind of the blue, they said I dismissed my own multi-million-dollar case. Well, there's no way I did that. But if my case would have went through, it would have changed workman's comp back to the original structure of workman's comp. Because workman's comp used to be, if you got injured, and if you worked for the government, you got your pay, 2/3 of your pay, plus 100% medical and dental, transportation, and all that covered. Then in the 1990s, they started getting rid of the private sector of workman's comp and started incorporating all the workman's comp under the state. So when they've been doing this for the last 20 years, people just go along and think, okay, now we're supposed to be on federal disability when we're not. We're supposed to get a lump sum payment and live on our life. But then in the 90s, the TV commercials kept on coming out and saying, well, people get a lump settlement, and then they end up spending it all, and then they ended up on food stamps. Well, if they got that type of lump settlement and they ended up on food stamps, sorry, you're not entitled to food stamps. You didn't budget your money. And the courts actually, and the state had two structures on that. You got a lump settlement, or they would divide it up basically what they expected your life expectancy was. They covered all your medical out of it, and you got a percentage every month, a check every month. So they had options on this that were available to the public. But attorneys were not giving it to the public, and they didn't want the general public to know they had rights. So if people didn't know they had rights, hey, that's how they're getting away on this stuff even today, what we're all going through. That's why I call it. We're living in hell. So. Anyhow, he's right. We're going after the deal tonight. Next Monday, we will have Rob Ryder on with us. And I'm sorry. Huh?
If I may, Ed?
Okay, real quick, Daniel.
Yeah, when you make that motion to move exhibit into evidence.
Right.
And they don't respond at all?
No, you make sure it's filed with the Court of Appeals recorded record. So long as you got their record stamp and you're out of their building with their stamp on that stuff, they're liable.
Well, I have that.
Okay, so it depends on the way you wrote your court case, too.
That's if they have the seal on their papers.
Right, because, I mean, it depends on the way you presented the case, what you wrote in the facts, how you presented the wording in the case. And that is the one thing that, you know, me, Dave, and Michelle have been learning is presenting the wording in the case, so when they read it, all of a sudden you start seeing things are moving, and they're panicking because, you know, they're trying to stop this train, because the major part of the train is when Trump took over office, he just came out publicly said 2 months ago, the biggest problem we have in this country is the court system. He said it in his speech. So they're paying attention. They are picking up, but we have to see. I'm not a voter, so I don't get involved in that crap. But I don't have a problem serving a man, or not serving, but providing education to a man that admits he's the president of the corporation and comprehends the 1871 contract, and even admits that, hey, oh shit, he just nailed 3 of his own attorneys that were registered with the Foreign Administration Act, and he had to react on that. And these are attorneys of his for 35 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's getting it and, you know, doing this. So we have to congratulate him for doing that, which I have sent a deal on it. You know, thanking him. He's being honorable, and that's the point that we know. We know how frustrated it is because the tax he's getting, because most of the people don't even, 30% of this country is not even in this country legally. 30% straight off the board. Okay? In the last 20 years, they allowed 47 million people in this country. Okay? The forests are disappearing. There's no hunting. The fish is dying off. The water is dying off. So we're going to be cannibals to each other when this shit hits the fan, instead of if they put this wall up when it was originally brought up in 1940, and everybody went against it, you know, before that was dealing with World War II. If the wall would have been up, we wouldn't have the invasion so bad as we got today, because 60% of the stuff in the grocery store is fake food. Most of your rice that you buy in the grocery store is not rice, it's plastic chips. So, I mean, and that's the point. People don't realize. I remember when the 70s, when the people were bitching about jobs going to Mexico and the manufacturers going to Mexico. And these elders would sit me down and explain this, and some of it I got, but the other point was like, I'm going to everybody else. I'm paying $125 for Red Wing boots right now. And I got these ones from Mexico, and they're only $49.99. They're steel-toed, just like the ones I got that I'm paying $149 for. But I didn't realize that for the $149 I had for 10 years, and the one I paid for $60 only had for 2 years. So, I mean, that's when I started putting together how wasteful we are in, you know, our communities and our lifestyle. You know, I buy Ziploc bags, and I reuse them all the time. I don't just throw them away. I don't buy garbage bags. I get the plastic bags from shopping. Those are my garbage and tote bags. When I go mushroom picking or something like that, I've already got my bags with me. You know, I don't go out and buy a lot of stuff because I can adapt to utilizing things. It's like my mayonnaise jars are plastic now. I fill them up with water, throw them in the freezer. I'll fill them up with soup or stews, so that way I throw them in the freezer and I got food that I made. I don't have to go out and buy Tupperware because it's made basically from the same plastic. So there are ways. I mean, I look at things a lot differently in recycling than I do personally. I collect rainwater. Literally, I got 50-gallon barrels out there.
Tell them.
You know, I got 5-gallon buckets. I have lids, and then when they fill up with rain, I put the lid on them, stack them up.
It's supposed to be.
Because if it does hit the fan, at least I know I got water. You know, and I can always grow something with food.
Yeah. Tell them that this is.
So it's just the way that we're looking at life that sometimes we don't look at, you know, because it's hit the fan. Like right now, we're expecting over 1 million people just in the one county I'm in for the solar eclipse coming up. You know, every hotel was booked a year in advance throughout the Oregon State here.
That's what they need to look up.
You know, a year in advance. All right, and because of the air eclipse that the hotels were going for $149 or $179 a night, they're selling 4-room night packages for $2,500 flat fee. You know, the restaurants are going to be so packed, they're going to run out of food. The booze is going to run out. You know, if you see where I'm coming from, they can't even bring food in because all the roads are going to be blocked off for the million cars along the highways.
Hey, Ed?
Yeah.
Here's a couple things our listeners need to look up.
Okay.
In violations with 26 CFR section 1441-1, round brackets lower C, and round brackets 3, individual private parties.
Okay, repeat that again.
Okay. 26 26 CFR section 1441-1, round bracket C. Excuse me, doggone it. And round bracket 3.
Got it.
Individual private party.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have Michelle read the lower part to you.
Okay.
Okay, what he just referred to under the 26 CFR 1441-1C3, that's us. That's what we fall under pertaining to the law. And then he was going to go on and read to you rules of procedure and evidence. Power to prescribe ABC constituted a securitization breach. By stating that, you're indicating that they violated your rights and they constituted your rights on a breach because they violated also the Constitution. Now, when you say rules of procedure, you're talking about the court. Okay, so they constituted a securitization breach under violations of Title 42, which is the court, under Section 1985, which is a conspiracy to interfere with civil rights, under deprivation of rights, under Title 18, which is a crime. Section 241 means conspiracy against rights and conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. As acting under authority, under color of law, or state law, under violations of Title 28, USC Section 1331 jurisdictions. That's how you would present yourself in court, and you're already right off the bat informing the court and the judge that they violated your due process rights by constituting a securitization breach.
Mm-hmm.
And you just pointed out that they are committing a conspiracy against you and a conspiracy upon the court because they just violated your due process rights, which is interfering with your civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then you would go on and you would name your parties, which would be your defendants, unless you're the defendant and they're the plaintiff, or vice versa. Now,
right.
There's another section here that we were going to read to you, and that's if the conversion of private property to public property is done without the express consent of the party affected by the conversion and without compensation, then the following violations have occurred. Because taxation involves converting private property to a public, hang on a minute, I got to turn the page, a public use, public purpose or purpose, and public office.
And what
it involves immediate domain if the owner of the property did not expressly consent to the taking. Person falls under 26 U.S.C. Section 7701A, 1, and withholding agent falls under 26 U.S.C. Section 7701A16. You can look those up and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay, and the first one started with 26771. I got that, but what was the whole chapter started?
Person, the definition for person is 26 U.S.C. Section 7701, small a and 1.
Right.
Withholding agent is 26 U.S.C. Section 7701A16. We fall under 26 CFR Section 1441-1, lower C and 3, the number 3, which stands for individual, private citizen, or private person. That would be us under law. Now I'm going to read something to you because this has to do with the states and the union.
Okay, then after that we're going to bundle up the show.
It sounds good. The federal government has no power of eminent domain within the states of the union. This means that they cannot lawfully convert private property to public use or public purpose or purpose within the exclusive jurisdiction of state, which is a small f, or states of the union. The United States have no constitutional capacity to exercise municipal jurisdiction, meaning the courts. Sovereignty or eminent domain within the limits of the state, which is a capital S for state, or elsewhere, except in cases it is delegated and the court denies the faculty of the federal government to add to its powers by treaty or compact. And then, of course, I cite a case law there pertaining to that.
Oh, good. So email those to me.
I did. It's in the document that we sent you.
Oh, okay.
Me too, Michelle.
Consent to donate your private property to a public office is, in the government, and therefore a public use. So this is, keep in mind, when they talk about the jurisdiction of the states, remember, the conspiracy and where we have been deceived has to do with taxation. So think of it, it's the same outline, just like if you were to go and register your vehicle, with the state. It's the same scenario. The only difference is they converted it, so it's called conversion. So by accessing yourself, you incompletely give your consent to allow the public the right to control that use of the formerly private property donated to a public use. That is what falls under the taxation. Withholding agent as defined in 26 U.S.C. Section 7701A16. This is where the trickery comes into play under Section 1001. So that's what I learned, because remember, when they converted your earnings regarding the taxation, what they did is they put you in a corporate status. So you want to remove yourself from the corporate status regarding that conversion.
Yeah. But we need to write.
That's what I learned. And by the way, when they can't access your earnings, they can't file a W-4 form regarding the taxes. So how can they convert you over to a corporation? And it's the same thing with the W-4 form and the, there's another form that I addressed. Where is it? The W-2 form. They can't, because remember, the withholding agent can't file an IRS form, which is a W-2, against your earnings.
Right.
You bring that against them in court, and I'll tell you what, the judge is going to stand up pretty tall, because now the judge will be, if the judge goes forward with that, would be committing treason.
Exactly, and that's what I want to put in this deal I'm writing up right now.
So that verbiage is in the notice of dishonor that I sent you, Ed, that we just...
okay, I'll go to that here in a little bit.
Yeah,
okay.
The IRS. So you can cut and paste some of that.
I'll get to that one later. Anyhow, Dave...
What was that?
I don't know, but...
20 past 8.
Yeah, I know. Do you have any last words, Dave?
Pay attention to what we spoke about tonight. If you're going to court, know your status and present yourself well. We've given you more than enough information to wake the judge up. Okay? And with that, I'll say good night, Ed.
All right. Good night, Dave. Anyhow, I'd like to say thanks for everybody attending with us tonight. Sorry I was late, but I had to deal with things, and that's the way it goes sometimes. Bringing up the facts is doing the research, knowing what's going on. You know, it's like your public employees right now are giving away your public lands and stuff. You know, they're saying they have legal rights when they don't. So I'm trying to get the other ballots, the other stuff written up, and so we can get it out there. But I'm working as best I can on these projects. So with that, I'd like to say, may the Great Spirit walk with you, and may Mother Earth bless you, and the Creator look over you. And may you all have a blessed evening and travel with the Great Spirit.
Well, I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher, Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell, and he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
You have been listening to the Disclaimers by Davidlee Buess and Edward Johnston. It is currently 8:25 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is Monday, August 7th, 2017. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.
This session is no longer being recorded.